The education of a man is never completed until he dies. So good afternoon everybody. I welcome you to the day 15 of Homeopathic 360 Homeopathic Learning Series, which is being designed in such a way to make you all competent in Hahnemannian homeopathy and refresh your mind, as well as give you a strong revision of Hahnemannian principles by the most experienced and the expert faculty, who is going to provide you a wealth of information that is necessary to know the core essence of homeopathy. We have aimed to provide you a homeopathic training with a solid foundation in the principles of pure homeopathy and how you can integrate them into practice. So I hope everybody is ready to learn from two great speakers we have with us today, and you are excited to listen to them along with me. We'll be taking the subjects of materia as well as organon today, and we have two great speakers with us. Uh, I hope everybody is ready. But before we begin, I just want to introduce you to the platform of Homeopathy 360 as well as Homeopathic Learning Series. So knowledge is strength, and we have always aimed to empower people through our platform of Homeopathy 360, that is the platform of hidden talents and treasury of knowledge. I, Dr. Yashika Arora, also would like to invite you all the esteemed homeopaths who are with us right now, to contribute your area of expertise and experiences for our website as well, and publication of your articles or your videos or your presentations. As it's an online publication of all kinds of course material, we try to publish on our website latest news, any updates about homeopathy, all the upcoming events, webinar details, career opportunities, job vacancies, and each and everything each and every single information that is related to homeopathy, and make it universally accessible at www.homeopathy360.com. We have always aimed towards the advancement of homeopathy as an evidence-based science, and tried to connect homeopaths worldwide, broadcast their talent. And through these webinars also, we are trying our level best to connect all the homeopaths during this lockdown period through these webinars. So I just want to acquaint who all have joined us today for the first time. I before I begin this session, I want to thank Mr. Manish Jain, the director of BJN Publishers, who is behind this idea of webinars, as well as my team. I'm thankful to all of my team members who are working day in and out for this, for executing these webinars, for executing the website. Also, we have Dr. Rajesh sir with us. I welcome Dr. Rajesh, who will be with us at the backend system to ensure that the webinar runs smooth. Welcome, Dr. Rajesh. So, not testing much of your patience, just I want to let me tell you, the uniqueness of this webinar lies in reaching each of our learners personally, and we have a chat box for that on your screens, wherein you can type your questions and send to us by pressing the button next to the box. We'll be running a question answer session at the end of each session. Like, we'll have a question answer session at 4:20, as well as we'll be running a question answer session at 5:45 for the second speaker. You can put up your questions in the chat box, and we'll discuss them in the end of the webinar. So let me take the privilege to invite our both speakers of today who are with us today. I just want to welcome both of them. Teaching is a very noble profession that shapes the character, caliber, and future of an individual. A good teacher is a doctor who heals ignorance, and an artist who inspires creativity. So I welcome our first speaker. The way he teaches, the knowledge he shares, the care he takes, the love he showers makes him as one of the world's best teachers. So I welcome him to our platform of Homeopathy 360 on behalf of my whole team, and as well as collaborators of this series. Dr. Saptrishi Banerjee sir. He's gold medalist in BHMS, an MD Home Overseas Consultant, Orovan Holistic Institute, Thailand. He's also a visiting lecturer of PG Home, ACH Tokyo, at ACH Tokyo, Japan. He's also a visiting lecturer at Allen College of Homeopathy, Essex, England. He is MD in Materia Medica, and being the fifth generation homeopath, Dr. Saptrishi sir has inherited the wisdom and homeopathic heritage of over 100 years. Saptrishi sir inherits his clinical acumen and wisdom from his illustrious father, that is Dr. Subrata K. Banerjee sir. We are privileged enough to have him here, and welcome on behalf of all whole our team. I also want to tell his excellences. So he has achieved he has been awarded a gold medal for his first position in All India entrance examination by Calcutta Homeopathic Medical College, and has a teaching experience as follows. Monthly postgraduate workshops he takes in Malaysia and Bangkok, Thailand, at Dr. Orawan Holistic Institute since 2013. He also takes lectures at Allen College of Homeopathy, England. He's also a lecturer at Bengal Allen Medical Institute, which offers international programs for overseas homeopaths once in each year, and also conducts postgraduate program in Tokyo, Japan. So he'll be discussing with us behavioral materia medica of Apexians, Mr. Nakswamik and Mrs. Magnesia Cup. So I think everybody is ready to listen to such a nice topic and innovative topic from him. Also, I would like to welcome our second speaker who will be taking the Organon of medicine part. So I just want to introduce him with a saying, शिक्षक उस कुम्हार की भांति होता है जो विद्यार्थी रूपी घड़े को बनाने के लिए भारी हाथ से हल्का चोट तो देता है, लेकिन घड़े के अंदर यानी हमारी आत्मा को सहारा भी देता है. So I welcome. He's to the world. He may be a teacher, he may be a lecturer, but for me, he's a great homeopath, an inspiration, a dedicated homeopath, a superhero, I would say, in the homeopathic fraternity. He is Dr. M.K. Sahani, sir, who is again with us on this platform. I welcome you, sir, on the behalf of Team Homeopathy 360, VJN Publishers, and VJN Group. I want to take the privilege to introduce him. He's BSc, DHMS, MD Home, PGD, HHM from Symbiosis, CCCR, and PhD from MUHS. He was the former chairman of Education Committee of Central Council of Homeopathy, and is the president of Bihar Voluntary Health Association, the postgraduate coordinator and professor and HOD at GD Memorial Homeopathic Medical College. So we have him here. He'll be taking on the topic of unifying the concepts of Organon of medicine and repertory for chronic cases. I would like to invite both of them to the platform, and without wasting any more time, I want to hand over the session to our first speaker, that is Dr. Saptrishi Banerjee, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, those who are joining in. We have an interesting topic to share with you today, and without wasting much time, I'd like to go on to the topics. I've put up two interesting medicines, and those are Naxomica and Magcarb. From my initial days, I have learned comparative metromedica, so I'm not that much into repertory. But what I'll share with you over the next hour or so is how you can easily differentiate between two of your greatest polycrests. And although they may have a lot of similarities, yet they are different in very many ways. I'm sure you know about your Naxomica. I'm sure you prescribe your Naxomica. But as you understand, I have inherited a lot of interesting clinical tips over generations, and I'd like to share with you a few innate areas of prescription and how to do a comparative metromedica with these interesting remedies. Our first, just give me a moment. Dr. Rajesh, you can help me. It's not putting on the screen share option.
Sir, is on the center of.
Yeah, it is on the center of your screen, sir. Just move your cursor on the screen, and next to the mic and webcam, there is the option of turn screen on.
That it's not taking in
You need to
the
click on
screen
the
share
entire
option.
screen, and yeah, you need to click on the entire screen and then click on the start sharing. The process is that you need to click on turn screen on, and then there is the option of sharing the entire screen. Click on that and then start the screen button, sir.
Sorry,
Have you done?
it's not taking in the screen share option.
Sir, can you please, yeah, can you, do you see the audio and video option? Just beside it, you have a screen share option. Click on it. Beside the audio option, you have a screen share option on the center of your screen only, above your picture,
It's showing a cross button.
showing a
Uh,
cross.
uh, Dr. Saptarishi sir, I request you to please refresh your page and log in again. It may happen that because of the internet, it may not appear properly. So I request you to just refresh your page and follow the link again and log in, sir.
हो गया अमित जी। 5 और 6 में तो हमको कोई प्रॉब्लम दिखाई पड़ नहीं रहा था, तो भरे हुए थे, इसलिए हमने जवाब नहीं दिया। और थोड़ा सा हम बिजी भी थे।
So dear doctors, kindly hook up with the platform. We are about to start with Dr. Saptarishi sir. He is about to back on the platform and we start the session soon. So please stay tuned. Dr. Saptarishi sir, we are able to hear you. I believe now you're getting the other options on the platform. Dr. Saptarishi sir, I believe
Yeah,
you are
can
able
you
to
hear me?
Yes, yes. Yeah, to see speak also.
Is it possible to see the PowerPoint?
Yes, yes. It's very clear, sir.
Okay.
Sir, everything is fine. I request you to please start the proceedings.
Okay. Okay, so we'll start with Naxomica. If you can see the first slide here, I mentioned about the phases of Naxomica. As you understand the emotional component in Naxomica, they're very bossy, they're very dictatorial persons, very ambitious, very achievers. I've mentioned in the start of my topic that they're Apexians, they always want to reach the top. And M. Chaudhary, in his book of Metromedica, mentions that the best doctors, the best scientists, the best commercial magnates are all Naxomica. But unfortunately, they're not as pleasant as they're great. So there may be great people, they may be achievers, but unfortunately, they're not very nice or very pleasant people. So as you can see here, I've mentioned they can be smart, they can be very bossy, very dictatorial, and very fault-finding. If you see here, the voice is very dictatorial, decisive, strong voice. So they're always bossing over people. That's why whenever you think of Mr. Naxomica, they never like to be under, the domination of anyone. So they're always the leaders, they're always the achievers. And that's why it's one of your leader in medicine who doesn't want to marry, because they don't want to go into the bondage of marriage, to be very honest. So very bossy, very dictatorial nature you'll find with Naxomica. Behavior, if you see here, I mentioned workaholic. If you think of your top workaholic medicines, Naxomica and Macab, as I'm sharing with you today, they're two very workaholic medicines. But at the same time, in case of Naxomica, the workaholism is due to their desire for money, on one hand. So the desire for wealth, material gains is very important for Naxomica. But on the other hand as well, in Naxomica, they want to reach the top. They want to be at the apex. To always remember, Naxomica and Bryonia are complementary medicines, so they follow each other very well. On one hand, you'll have Bryonia, which is dry, there is no emotions, they're always wanting money, they're always wanting material gains. So you'll find Mr. Bryonia is a stockbroker's remedy. So they're always in need for more money and more wealth and more material gains. Similarly, to a certain extent, you'll find that comparison with Naxomica as well, who are in want for material gains. But the only way of achieving material gains is through sheer hard work. And Naxomica makes sure he does that and gets on the top of the pile. So, in their quest of being the topper, in their quest of being the Apexian, sometimes it is necessary to develop those negative qualities. And you see, I've mentioned here aggression, impatience. Those are few negative qualities, which fortunately is a positive trait in their quest for success. If you see the dressing, you have to understand Naxomica is a fastidious medicine. If you think of all the other fastidious medicines like carcinosin, phosphorus, arsenic, they're all different in their fastidiousness. Whenever you open a repertory, you'll see fastidious, all these medicines are mentioned in the top grade. But whenever you understand the innate comparisons, you'll be able to differentiate that why Naxomica is fastidiousness and how it is fastidious. If you think of arsenic's fastidiousness, it is more for the fear of infection. They want the surroundings clean. They want a germ-free environment. If you think of phosphorus's fastidiousness, it's in their nature to deck up quick, good, nice. They have the beauty culture, so they want to dress up beautifully. I want to dress up nicely. So it's the nature in phosphorus. But in case of Naxomica, their fastidiousness is mostly concentrated around their workplace. So whenever they're working for long hours, wherever there's a study table, when they're students, whenever it's a desk, whenever they're entrepreneurs, and you'll find their surroundings are very, very neat and clean. They may not be also always so much worried about their home, but Naxomica's surroundings, Naxomica's workplace is absolutely spick and span. In the same degree, you'll find Naxomica are not very beautiful and attractive. They're not that born attractive like what you find with phosphorus or with carcinosin. But in case of Naxomica, they make themselves attractive. So if you read the Metromedicas, you'll find in Naxomica, they are of thin persons. They are absolutely dark hair and emaciated persons can be Naxomica. But whenever you look at Naxomica and they have earned that enough degree of wealth, they know all the accessories to make themselves on the finest quality. So they'll put on a very nice hat, they will put on a very nice pair of glasses and watches, and through their appearance, through material gains as well, they make themselves attractive in the process. So that attractiveness is also a part of Naxomica's fastidiousness. And as you understand here, it's not the appearance which makes them attractive, it's the accessories which makes them attractive. And that's a very, very classical description of Naxomica. Charismatic, whenever Mr. Naxomica enters a room, you'll be able to know, because they have that dominating, they have that domineering, they have that charismatic nature. Again, a little bit of it attributed to their bossy dictatorial nature, but a little bit of it attributed to their beautiful appearance as well in Naxomica. Appearance, if you see, I've mentioned here, thin subjects, dark hair, dark complexion, sedentary life. I'm sure you know that. And as I shared with you, appearance is not that attractive like a phosphorus, like a tuberculinum, but through their gestures and behavior and their accessories, they make themselves very dapper and attractive. If you see, I've mentioned here, they have a suit and a tie and very neat and tidy. If you see this picture, Mr. Naxomica is the boss. And if you see here, Mrs. Pulsatilla, Mr. Pulsatilla is working under him. And that shy and soft Pulsatilla is always dominated, is always bossed over by the Naxomica. So Naxomica are always the leaders, they're always the rulers. But again, you have to understand here. See, that's why comparative Metromedica is important, especially students, undergraduate, postgraduate as well. You'll understand this. Naxomica's bossy dictatorial nature is, I want to get this done. You have to finish this very quickly. So that kind of bossy, demanding nature you'll find with Naxomica. And he gets things done, to be very honest. But at the same time, if you see in your repertories, love of power, you'll see Lycopodium is mentioned in the top medicine. Now you'll find Lycopodium loves power, you'll find Naxomica loves power. But Naxomica's way of getting power is, through direct confrontation. So they will be bossy, they will be dictatorial, they will be quarrelsome, and they will get what they want. So I want this done, you stay back, you get this done. He'll say to his Pulsatilla subordinate. But whenever you think of Mr. Lycopodium, on one hand, they have love of power, but on the other hand, they're very courteous and they're very sincere. So Mr. Lycopodium will say, can you get this done for me, please? You may have to stay over a little bit, but please get this done. So Lycopodium is quietly right. He wants that power, he wants to be successful, but he gets things done in a very diplomatic and a very subtle and courteous way. That's why Naxomica makes great dictators, but Lycopodium makes great politicians, because they know the art of diplomacy, which is very important to survive in the political world. So you'll find that bossy dictatorial to be attributed to Naxomica, to a certain extent to Lycopodium, but do remember, for Lycopodium is quietly right. Personality, ambitious, arrogant, charismatic, very confident, very courteous. Not to that extent like Lycopodium, but the appearance, their attractiveness is courteous. Aggressive. But do remember also, you have to understand this. Naxomica's miasm is predominantly sora and psychosis. So you don't have that degree of physical violence or physical harm in case of Naxomica. So because there is no syphilitic miasm involved here. Because of his sora and psychotic traits, the aggression is more vocal aggression. So you'll shout, you'll address things in a very rough and arrogant way, but you'll get things done. You'll never find an Naxomica, breaking things and damaging things. They may throw things out of their hands, but they will not hurt people physically and do physical violence, say like a tarantula or a lycine. But Naxomica's aggression is more vocal. Aggressive and independent, I've mentioned that. Impatient. That's why Mr. Naxomica will be pleased to have a Pulsatilla wife, because Naxomica wants independence, but Pulsatilla wants to be dependent on others. They want an anchor. Fault finding, competitive. I've mentioned that. Now again, another medicine which is important as a comparative metromedica here is veratrum album. Whenever you think of a remedy like veratrum album, you have very similar qualities in veratrum album. You have the arrogance in veratrum album. They can be very fault finding in veratrum album. Vermeulen in his book mentions that he's little Mr. Hitler because he has that same dictatorial, fault-finding and arrogant nature which you'll expect with an Naxomica. He's very haughty and proud like an Naxomica as well. But you understand, in Naxomica, the pride arises out from their success. They have been successful, they have reached the peaks in their careers, and hence they have the right to be proud, to be frank with you. But in case of veratrum album, that arrogance is more like a false arrogance. That pride is more like a false pseudo pride or a pseudo haughtiness. Because in veratrum album, you'll find they are very, very busy, but it's a fruitless busyness. They are very restless, they're very busy, but unfortunately, they do not achieve anything. So on one hand, if you think in veratrum album, you have all the arrogance, you have all the impatience, you have the fault finding and the haughty dictatorial nature which you have with Naxomica. But unfortunately, you don't have the success. You don't have the epixience or like Naxomica. They're unfortunately unsuccessful because they're fruitlessly busy. They have that restlessness, they have that violence. Unfortunately, they are not successful. So you have all the negative qualities of Naxomica and veratrum album as well. But unfortunately, they cannot churn out results. They cannot churn out life-changing experiences and life-changing activities. And that's very important differentiation between veratrum album and Naxomica from the comparative point of view. Gesture and behavior, if you see, this is on the bottom picture, Mr. Naxomica is standing in a queue and he's absolutely impatient. He hates a queue. He always wants to be at the top. So he's going to a homeopath to visit him and waiting for the queue in the line. Mr. Naxomica doesn't like it. He comes and gives a good round of words to in the top picture to the homeopath. Because I don't like to wait. I'm impatient. You take double the money, but I don't have to wait for you. Impatience. And if you understand the life cycle of Naxomica, if you think of what of the medicines they take, any headache they have, they take a pill. Any cough they have, they take a pill. Any gastric issues they have, they take a pill. Because they don't have that patience to wait and ride it out or, try any other modes of treatment because of the impatience. And that constantly taking of medicines is taking a toll on the system. As you know, your Naxomica is a universal antidote. So the impatience is also, unfortunately, one of the triggering factors for developing of physical symptoms as well for Naxomica. If you see the appearance of Naxomica, nice tie, nice suit, and dressed up very well, as I shared with you, they're pleasant. They're not pleasant, although they are great. If you see again, this is important for Naxomica. He's very particular about his desk. As I shared with you, Mr. Arsenic, whenever they go into somebody's house, they'll clean up the room. They will clean up anything dirty is there, or like a wall hanging is a little bit crooked, they'll make it straight. Because they are disturbed by lack of order. They want everything tip-top and they want everything germ-free in Arsenic. But in case of Naxomica, it's not about that. A, they want themselves to be attractive. They want to dress up in such a way that they will make themselves attractive. But B, on the other hand, wherever they spend the most amount of time, they want that place to be absolutely spick and span, and that's the workplace in Naxomica. If you see here, I mentioned jealous as well in Naxomica. Naxomica is quite a jealous medicine. But again, they churn out the jealousy in a positive frame. They churn out the jealousy so that they can be the achievers and they can be successful in Naxomica. Whereas if you think of medicines like Alzheimer's or Apis, their jealous nature sometimes take a toll on them and develops other grade of symptoms. Workaholic, I've mentioned that, very competitive, very ambitious. On the very small remedy which comes very close to Naxomica, and I want you to have a look later on in your Boricase Metromedica, is Avena sativa. Avena sativa is another medicine which has neurasthenia. They are workaholics, they work a lot in Avena sativa. And you'll find Mr. Avena sativa, like Naxomica, will tell you, I'm working hard all day, 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, so 12 hours I'm working, but I am so exhausted, I'm so tired. But unfortunately, and not getting a good night's sleep, which I want. You have this in Naxomica, you have that in your Avena sativa as well. So they work really hard, they're workaholics, but in case of Naxomica, you know the sleep pattern is quite disturbed. They cannot go to sleep and they wake up irritable and tired. Similarly, whenever you're finding failures with Naxomica with these group of symptoms, do remember you have a smaller remedy at your disposal, and that is Avena sativa, which has neurasthenia, which has insomnia, debility. And do remember that line which I've always heard as an ancestral tip from my granddad as well, that I'm exhausted, I'm tired, yet I cannot get a good night's sleep. And that's very important for Avena. So workaholic, that's quite important. Aggressive, if you see, breaks, hits, throws things. And as I shared with you, that is the sodic and psychotic miasm in case of Naxomica. Whenever you have Naxomica, they are limited by the barrier. So it will not cross over the line. You'll not find Naxomica hitting their wife. You'll not find a Naxomica child, having causes physical damage to another child in school, because their aggression is limited to shouting. Their aggression is limited to throwing things. It doesn't cross that syphilitic boundary to go and hit and damage or hurt another human being or an animal. And that's, I think, a very important differentiation with other remedies for Naxomica. Impatient, as I shared with you, wish to be cured very, very quickly. If you see here, the etiologies and the manifestations for Naxomica, I shared with you workaholic. Overrules restrictions. They don't like restrictions at all. They want to be a free bird totally. They are urging to achieve, always want to achieve. If you remember Hahnemann's line from Naxomica, that Hahnemann mentions that Naxomica is chiefly successful to persons of an ardent character. So they're very enthusiastic. So they want to achieve. Irritable, impatient temperament who are disposed to anger, and they can deceive people as well if they are obstacles to the road to success. Fastidious, I have mentioned. Aggressive and independent. Again, remember that aggression is more like a shouting, verbal aggression, or it can be throwing things in Naxomica. Etiology is not that degree of importance for Naxomica. Sometimes you can find anger, indignation as well in Naxomica. Naxomica and chamomilla, do remember, my friends, are two of your remedies which have etiology from expressing anger. So, you had a quarrel with someone, you expressed it, you shouted it out, you vented it out, and you're suffering as a consequence of that. Do remember your top two impatient medicines, Naxomica, chamomilla. On the other hand, whenever you have complaints from suppression of anger, you always know you have colocynth and bryony at your disposal to help you in those cases. So etiologies on one hand, manifestations on the other hand is very, very classic for Naxomica. I shared this with you already. Workaholic, confident, they always want to achieve. I'll share with you how it comes similar, yet it is dissimilar with Macabre when we start up with Macabre. But do remember the difference with Lycopodium. Do remember the difference with Veratrum album. And I think those are two very close remedies which can help you in cases where you are finding difficulties of improvement with Naxomica. If you see here as well, pompous. So they're very proud of themselves. To a certain extent, if you think of Platina as well, who has a lot of superiority complex. Pompous you can find with Platina as well. But again, you have to understand, sometimes Platina superiority complex is immaterial. They may not have a cause for the superiority complex. But in case of Naxomica, they're always that success gets to their head. And hence, they suffer from the superiority complex. Sometimes they're actually at the top. So it's natural for them to feel superior, but you'll find that pompousness with Platina as well. And Naxomica also likes approbation. Do remember, they likes to be told, yes, you are the best, you are the ruler, you are the leader. That's why Naxomica hates contradiction. They're totally intolerant of contradiction. You have read in this Metromedica, every harmless word offends. Another way of looking at it is they love approbation. They love to be told, yes, you are the best, you are the ruler, you are the dictators. So over the world, over the centuries, whenever you come across dictators, you read about history and you find dictators, you always find dictators always had a circle around them, and the circle made sure to tell them that yes, you are the best. So they don't like to be told and have any contradiction. They don't like to be told there any fault finding. Ken gives a beautiful picture of Naxomica. While opening his clothes, he finds that a button is hurting his shirt. He cannot open it. He'll throw the button away. While walking, he finds that there is a chair on the way. Even he kicks off the chair. So that degree of contradiction is intolerant of. Not only emotionally, but even in the real world, they're intolerant of contradiction. So the pompousness, the need for approbation is very important. Also, do remember two other remedies which have this kind of need for approbation, need this kind of pride, haughty nature. You have that with Palladium, who loves approbation as well, and you have that with Gratiola as well. Gratiola, if you look in Boricae, you'll see it mentions symptoms of overweening pride like Naxomica. So this pompousness is another important factor to understand for your Naxomica. Money is honey, as I shared with you. Bryony and Naxomica, they're always worried about money. Calcaria fleur can have fear of financial ruin, but it's more like an anxiety and fear. But if you think of materialistic nature, you'll find that with Bryony and Naxomica, two very similar remedies where you have no emotions and it's all about material gains in Naxomica. And if you see this picture here, you see he's not the left picture. He's not that beautiful, he's not that attractive, but he puts on, a very expensive hat. He has a cigar, he has an expensive tie. He knows how to attract attention through his appearance, through his accessories. We'll come to some of the physical areas of Naxomica, which I feel is interesting, which I like to share with you. Clark mentions, always do remember for Naxomica, if you read Clark's dictionary, that oversensitiveness is one of the keynotes for Naxomica. You understand from the strychnine poisoning that they're very sensitive to external impressions. But you also have to remember, especially undergraduate, postgraduate students, do remember Naxomica is a wonderful paralytic medicine. So you'll find a lot of paralytic symptoms in case of Naxomica. Oversensitiveness, as I mentioned to you, oversensitiveness to external impressions, noise, odor, sound, they're oversensitive to that. And as I shared with you, that intolerant of contraindication is also a degree of oversensitiveness. If you read Metromedicas, they can faint from the the slightest odor. So that is also an oversensitiveness or Naxomica. Do remember, in homeopathy, we always try to give importance to totality of symptoms. But if you manage to read Boricae's Metromedica, especially the stool section, you'll find absence of all desire for defecation is a contraindication for Naxomica. So if Naxomica tells you, I don't have any urge for stool, you have to think 10 times before you prescribe Naxomica. And that is a clinical tip I have inherited, which I have learned and which I apply with patients with very good results. That if a Nux patient tells you they have no desire for defecation, it should not be Naxomica. It's a contraindication for Naxomica. Boricae's Metromedica, Naxomica, you'll find it's mentioned absence of all desire for defecation is a contraindication. Sleep is very interesting for Naxomica. One is a catnap sleep, so they sleep during the day. But what I've learned again as an ancestral tip, do remember, if you see on the clock in the slide, it's mentioned, it shows 6 o'clock. And always remember, which I've learned as an ancestral tip, sun sets, Nux sleeps. So whenever the sun is setting, Nux feels very, very sleepy, evening hours. 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, they wake up at night. And then after that, it's a dreamy sleep. It's a very superficial sleep. And unfortunately, when they wake up in the morning, they feel all the more unrefreshed. They feel all the more tired. So sun sets, Nux sleeps is a very important factor for Naxomica. And because they're not getting that enough degree of sleep through the night, they sleep through the day, catnap sleep. You have that with sulfur, you have that with Naxomica. They have catnap sleep, and that's very classical for Naxomica as well. And that's why I shared with you Avena sativa as a medicine which comes very close, because workaholics, working long hours, you feel exhausted in the morning. You understand if you don't get a good night's sleep, you'll feel exhausted and tired. And you have that with Naxomica. Oversensitive to cold, I already shared with you. They're very chilly patients, Naxomica. And only one reverse modality, I'm sure you have read this, But do always remember, coryza is better in cold air and is worse in a warm room. So that's important for Nux-vomica. Nux is only better by vomiting. Whenever you look in any repertory for amelioration by vomiting, you have a few other medicines. Do remember, all symptoms of Nux-vomica are better by vomiting. If I could only vomit, I would be so much better. But also do remember other medicines which are better by vomiting. If you think of headache, which is better by vomiting, do remember Sanguinaria canadensis. If you think of generals again, which is better by vomiting, you have that in hyoscyamus and boricates mentions better by vomiting. Sickle core, pulsatilla are also other medicines which are better by vomiting. But whenever you think of in general better by vomiting, Nux-vomica is your top medicine. If those fails, do think of pulsatilla, sickle core, hyoscyamus, who also have better by vomiting. But if you have specifically, like a sick headache and the patient vomits to make it better, do remember Sanguinaria canadensis. Nash's sum up, this is important. Nash mentions about Nux-vomica that his top 3 points for Nux-vomica is nervousness. Nervousness in terms of the neurological symptoms, the oversensitiveness, the chilliness, as I shared with you, and the sensitiveness, especially to cold air. So they want everything, doors and windows closed, and that's very important for Nux-vomica. And if you think of a life story of Nux-vomica, they wake up in the morning, they go to work, and it's a very demanding, busy job. And because they're not having good sleep at night, prolonged office work, they want to sleep in between. 30 minutes sleep, they feel even better with that. So that's a very important factor for Nux-vomica. In the evening, when they come home, or they're going out to parties, the 3 Ws of Nux-vomica, or 4 Ws: wine, work, wealth, and woman. So whatever the money they earn, they spend it on wine and woman, as well as decking themselves up. And taking that lifestyle day in, day out, it takes a toll of them. And how do they stay awake? They take the cat naps, they stay awake, and they take a lot of stimulants: coffee, wine, tobacco. So they take those stimulants, but always in moderation, do remember. That's why you cannot think, or you cannot see a Nux-vomica who will have a drug addiction. Because on one hand, in Nux-vomica, they are the achievers, they are successes, they are the successful people. But they need the stimulation in moderation so as to achieve their success. Think of a medicine like Calcaria Phos. Calcaria Phos has a lot of disappointment and grief as well. And they don't find any stimulation in their life. So they go to recreational drugs, they go to marijuana to make themselves give that stimulation. And sometimes they take on that path of self-destruction. They don't know how to look back, and they're done with their lives. But Nux-vomica's desire for addiction, desire for wine, alcohol, desire for tobacco or coffee is again in moderation, so that it doesn't interfere with the mental functioning, that it doesn't interfere with the intellectual functioning, it doesn't interfere with their way of success in life. It can cause physical damage. You understand, they can be constipated, they can have a lot of physical issues, they can have that degree of irritability, but they don't want anything to interfere with the intellectual functioning, and that's very classical of Nux-vomica. Universal antidote, I'm sure you know about that. Any remedy, and especially they're taking it because of the impatience nature day in, day out, and hence they have to resort to quick fix medicines to make themselves better. I'd like to share with you a few clinical tips, especially if you have bad effects of medicines. Do remember, if you have a lot of bad effects from deworming medicines, do remember Teucrium. Teucrium is a medicine where whenever you have a lot of bad effects from deworming medicines. Children have taken a lot of deworming medicines, still the worms are not going away. You have tried your tuberculinum, you have tried your Sina and sulfur, still doesn't help, try Teucrium marum varum. If you have a lot of bad effects from iron tablets, iron pills, Nash says pulsatilla is your topmost remedy. Whenever you don't have any head or tail to the case, especially after taking a lot of iron tablets, do remember pulsatilla comes in handy. Also do remember, if you have a lot of hemorrhoids in patients who have taken a lot of conventional medicines, always do remember aloe socotrina is a topmost medicine. Many cases, my friends, whenever you have had failures or whenever you are stuck in cases from a lot of bad effects of conventional medication and patient is developing hemorrhoids and gastric symptoms, Nux-vomica hasn't helped, try aloes and it will come to your rescue. In many cases, aloes, this is mentioned, Borica's Metromedica in the introduction, that cases of hemorrhoids or gastric or portal congestion, whenever patients have taken a lot of conventional medication, it's not yielding, do think of aloe-socotrina. So those are few medicines which can help in cases of lot of medication. And the last word to describe Naxomica is trembling. So there's a lot of tremors in Naxomica as well. It's a neurological medicine, as I shared with you. Spasm is one of the keynotes. This is mentioned by Clark in his dictionary. And touch, anger, emotion always renews the spasm. And as I shared with you, this spasm, these tremors are always a result of expression of anger, as a result of expression of emotions. You'll never find Naxomica suppressing their emotions, always outward. It's always on the flow for you to see in Naxomica. And also you have to understand the seeds of Naxomica contain copper. And whenever you think of copper, whenever you think of cuprum, so the cramps, the spasms of Naxomica is also attributed to its component of copper, which causes this kind of spasms. And this spasm can be just simple twitchings, can be a lot of generalized contractions and even convulsions in Naxomica as well. Constitution, I've already shared that with you. Chilly persons, they like that sedentary lifestyle. That's quite important for Naxomica. And as I shared with you, do remember, absence of all desire for defecation is a contraindication. Few other things which I like to share with you as we go through the particular areas of Naxomica. Food desires, if you think of Naxomica, Naxomica loves, spicy food, rich food, and food with a lot of preservatives. But two very interesting points from the Metromedica point of view. Do remember, Naxomica loves fatty food. If you think of remedies like arsenic, nitric acid, sulfur, pulsatilla, they all love fatty food. But if you look in Borica's Metromedica, in pulsatilla chapter, it's mentioned, and Naxomica chapter in the stomach section, it's mentioned, Nux loves fats and tolerates them well. Pulsatilla also loves fats, but pulsatilla cannot tolerate the fat. But in case of Naxomica, Naxomica loves fat, Naxomica can tolerate it well. So they can digest the fats. That's important. So arsenic, nitric acid, sulfur, pulsatilla, they all love fatty food. But your Naxomica is one of those medicines who has no difficulties in digesting fatty food. Also, Naxomica is one of your leading medicines for desire for bitter food. So if you think of all kinds of bitter food, bitter drinks, like a bitter gourd, which people like, Naxomica is your topmost medicine. You have that in Natrum, you have that in Digitalis, you have that in Naxomica as well. The top 3 medicines for desire for bitter. It's a very uncommon desire. So whenever you hear people saying, I like bitter food, that's very, very classical for Naxomica as well. You see, I've mentioned here the desires, rich and stimulating food, wine, any types of stimulation, as long as it doesn't harm, it doesn't interfere with the intellectual function. I've mentioned in the top picture, if you can see, bitter things, alcohol, fat food. In the bottom picture, you can see I mentioned hereditary tendency to alcoholism. Father was an alcoholic, son is an alcoholic. You find that in sulfuric acid, syphilinum, sulfur, as well as Naxomica. Late night person, if you see, night watching is a very important factor. So whenever they're waking at night, it takes a toll on their system. And most often for Naxomica, as a consequence of waking at night, it affects their gastric system, it affects their emotional functions. So they become more irritable, they're more impatient because of lack of sleep. It could be either due to work, it could be due to excess use of coffee, it could be just because I cannot sleep. And as a consequence of that, either they start to become very irritable and impatient, more quarrelsome, or on the other hand, they're developing gastric issues, they're developing alternating constipation and diarrhea. Now, when you do a comparative Metromedica with this as well, loss of sleep, you'll get a lot of patients telling you this, that, I have symptoms whenever I cannot sleep after that, the day after that, or weeks after that, whenever I'm not getting good night's sleep, I get symptoms. Think of a medicine like Cocculus indica, who also suffers from loss of sleep. But what happens in Cocculus? They'll tell you, I'm having vertigo, I'm having a nausea, I'm having a lot of weakness, I'm having a leucorial discharge if it's a woman Cocculus. So loss of sleep, night watching, results in cocculus in these symptoms. Even convulsions in cocculus can happen. So weakness, vertigo, nausea, and convulsions in cocculus. Think of a medicine like nitric acid. You'll find in nitric acid they also suffer from symptoms from loss of sleep. But what happens in case of nitric acid? They get temperamental changes. Think of a woman who is looking after a terminally ill father. Think of a woman who is looking after her autistic child. Cannot sleep, cannot get that night's rest. And that night watching is causing irritability. That night watching is causing the revengeful, accusive nature in nitric acid. So whenever it affects them emotionally, temperamentally, do remember it's nitric acid. Whenever you think of a medicine like causticum, who also suffers from a lot of night watching, loss of sleep, do remember in case of causticum, they develop more neurological symptoms in causticum. Loss of sleep for days, for weeks, I'm having tremors. Loss of sleep for days and weeks, I'm having stammering. So in case of causticum, it's more neurological symptoms which develops in causticum as a consequence of loss of sleep. So Naxomica, nitric acid, causticum, cocculus indica are, in my understanding, I don't know about the repertory, but in my understanding from the Metromedica point of view, these are your top remedies for ailments from loss of sleep. And Naxomica definitely tops that list. Etiology, as I shared with you, the life cycle, the life story is in itself the etiology for Naxomica. Head to foot, you'll get in Naxomica like a sick headache, drunkards with congestive headache like you have with Lobelia inflata. Similarly, a drunkard with congestive headache, you'll find that with Naxomica. Catarrh, I already mentioned that to you. Reverse modality, better by sitting in open air. That makes the catarrh better in Naxomica. Sour breath is very important. This is mentioned by Boning Hossain in his book, where he mentions sour breath is a leading indication of Naxomica. Stomach is very sensitive to pressure. They'll remember that Naxomica has a lot of heaviness in the abdomen. You'll find a lot of Naxomica patients tell you that they want to loosen the clothing immediately. And that is generally few hours after the meal. So 2 to 3 hours, you find that with Naxomica, they want to loosen the clothing, and that's important. Do remember this as a clinical tip. Whenever somebody tells you it's specifically 3 hours after a meal that I feel pain in my abdomen, do remember that is aesculus hypocasternum. 3 hours after a meal. This is mentioned Boric's Metromedica as well. You can note this as a clinical tip. Especially 3 hours after a meal, if you feel that degree of heaviness in the abdomen, aesculus hypocasternum. But whenever it's generally a few hours after the meal, I feel a lot of pressure and sensitiveness, I want to loosen my clothing, do remember Naxomica, pulsatilla, even Bryannia can have that stone feeling in the stomach. And also do remember for Naxomica, they can have an asthma of gastric origin. So, they have a lot of flatulence, they have a lot of distension in the abdomen, and that is spreading upwards, and that is causing dyspnea as well in case of Naxomica. Constipation, diarrhea, I mentioned that it's alternate constipation, but always remember there is a frequent and ineffectual urging in Naxomica, which is very, very classical. The sleep again is very interesting. As I shared with you, sunsets, nut sleeps. Early evening hours, they can sleep, but late at night, they cannot. And when they wake up really tired and unrefreshed. And that's very, very classical for Naxomica as well. Quite reverse of pulsatilla. Pulsatilla sleeps well in the later part of the night, but keeps awake in the evening hours. And Naxomica, like sulfur, they have cat naps, and that cat naps through the day gives them the energy to go on with their daily activities. Best time to dispense, I'm sure you know this, best before going to bed, best around the time of night. That's important for your Naxomica time prescription. Few clinical tips I like to share with you for Naxomica. This is mentioned by Clark in his dictionary. He quotes Mahendralal Sarkar. I'm sure you have heard about Mahendralal Sarkar, second MD who converted to homeopathy. he cured a lot of cases of night blindness with Naxomica 6. So, especially if liver disorders with ocular atrophy, with eye atrophy, Naxomica 6, Clark quotes ML Sarkar, and that's quite important for a Naxomica prescription as well. Do remember the backache for Naxomica, which is quite interesting clinical tip as well. I'm sure you know this is mentioned in Alan's backache from masturbation, but especially the time of aggravation, 3 to 4 a.m. aggravation is very classical for Naxomica backache. Again, mentioned in class dictionary, and I've corroborated clinically as well with Naxomica. Especially if you think of that is more like Kaylee time of aggravation, 2 to 4 a.m. But especially 3 to 4 a.m. backache, if it's worse, do think of Naxomica as a very, very classical, useful medicine. And also many people do not corroborate Naxomica with sun headache, but Naxomica is also the medicine, always chilly, but headache in the sunshine is quite classical for Naxomica, like Glonomin or any other sun headache medicine. So that's about your Naxomica. We'll go on to our next medicine, which is Macab, and I'd like to compare you Naxomica with Macab.
So, Saptarishi sir, I request you to stop sharing the screen. I'm starting the PPT in the webinar, sir.
Okay. I stopped it. It's okay. Yeah.
I believe you are able to see Macab on the screen.
Thank
So
you.
now you can operate from the webinar platform, sir.
So my friends, my next medicine in this group is Macab. I don't know if you have used this medicine that often, but it's a very underrated polycrest, which I like to share with you and give you a detailed understanding. Whenever you think of a medicine like Macab, as I shared with you, it's an Apexian. So they want to reach the top. They want to be successful. So they will spend a lot of time in reaching that success. They will try to reach the top. As you see, I've mentioned the female Naxomica, they're the Apexians. So you have that urge to succeed. They have that urge to be the toppers, the Apexians in Macab, like Naxomica. But fortunately for Macab, you don't have that arrogance, don't have that impatience in Macab, which is so much associated with Naxomica. If you see here, the etiologies and manifestations. Whenever you think of carbonates, do remember all carbonates have a lot of insecurity. So sometimes that insecurity is one of the triggering factors for Macab to be successful. They have that insecurity, and that is a driving force. What if I'm out of money? What if I'm out of financial wealth? So that insecurity is one of the factors for Macab to be successful. You see, I've mentioned their insecurity. So it's not that need for wealth, need for power, need for success, which drives the desire, as you find Naxomica, but it's more like an insecurity of the carbonates, which you have with Calcab as well and Macab, which is a driving force behind Macab to be successful. So you have that carbonate insecurity on one hand, which is a driving force. But on the other hand, in case of Macab, do remember all magnesiums are peacemakers. I mentioned it here. They're sensitive to quarrels. They have a fear of aggression. So they don't like a confrontation. So they don't like to have, like a heated argument, tell their subordinates, you have to do this, you have to finish this. Like what you find with Naxomica. So they're very good bosses to work with in Macab. A female CEO, she's taking care of all her staff. She's taking care of their needs and demands. And, you'll be happy if you have a Macab boss. Because they don't want quarrels. They want to be the peacemakers. They want everything to be calm and a very peaceful, stress-free environment. So that's one of the emotional traits of Macab. Sometimes, if you see here, I've mentioned etiologies, neglected children, parental violence, parental arguments, they witnessed violence, they were neglected, and that is also a triggering factor for the insecurity. And because of the insecurity, that makes them their urge, yes, I have to be successful. Yes, yeah, I have to be self-dependent, self-reliant. But at the same time, I will not hurt people with what I saw. I saw my dad hitting up my mom, beating up the other brothers. So I don't want to inherit that violence. And that's why I hate violence, I fear aggression. I want to be the peacemakers. And that's very, very classical of McCabe. So you see, you have all the positive qualities of Naxomica and McCabe. They're Pexians, they're ambitious, the competitive, the charismatic, the toppers in McCabe. But unfortunately, to be very honest, fortunately, you don't have that arrogance. Fortunately, you don't have that impatience. Fortunately, you don't have that bossy dictatorial nature, which is so much attribute with Naxomica. Now, when you think of, I'll share with you the life story or the life cycle of McCabe, her daily, weekly routine. Waking up in the morning, she goes to work. She's a CEO of a company, so she's top investment banker, and she's working 9 to 5, day in, day out, Monday to Friday. 5 o'clock, finishes work, goes to meeting with the clients, goes to a nearby restaurant. She orders 2 things. She orders lamb and she orders a lemonade. Why? The 2 L's. Because your McCabe loves citrus drinks. McCabe loves sour drinks. At the same time, McCabe loves her meat. You'll see in Alan's it mentioned craving for meat in children of tubercular parentage. So loves her lamb and loves her lemonade. So she'll order those 2 things. Comes home, exhausted, worn out. Now she's trying to sleep. She'll say, I feel, like a discomfort in my legs. It's a little bit of cramps, which you have with McPhos. A little bit of cramps of magnesium, but I feel a discomfort in my legs. I'm unable to put my legs to rest. I go to sleep, I'm exhausted, but I cannot sleep well. I wake up in the morning, I feel unrefreshed, I feel tired. So that's the story of a Monday. She wakes up Tuesday morning, she's unrefreshed, she's tired. And she goes to her next day's work. Again, the same routine, 9 to 5, followed by lamb chops and lemonade. But unfortunately, she doesn't have the privilege of having a cat nap like Naxomica. Naxomica takes the cat nap, Naxomica takes the coffees and tobacco, which stimulates them. But your McCabe cannot take that, doesn't take that in fact. And McCabe becomes exhausted. Now think of McCabe. This routine goes on day in, day out, Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday, what happens? Weekend is the time for rest and relaxation. And whenever it's the time for weekend, whenever it's the time for relaxation, whenever she needs to wind out the exhaustion of the week because of her hectic schedule, also because of the lack of sleep. Now on the weekend, McCabe will have a triad. And what is that triad? Do remember for McCabe, acidity, headache, and constipation. That's very, very classical for McCabe. Acidity on one hand, so you'll have a lot of sourness in McCabe, sour reflux, sour vomiting. So a lot of acidity. Headache, it's a gastric headache in McCabe. And she's constipated. So weekend, whenever it's a time of rest and relaxation, she comes down with the triad of acidity, headache, and constipation. Now again, think this schedule is going on for weeks, going on for months. This gradual lack of sleep, exhaustion, so much sour acidity and reflux, GERD-like symptoms, is taking a toll on her system. And you'll find McCabe to be gradually becoming stressed, and you'll find McCabe, she'll gradually becoming irritable. Not to that same degree of Naxomica, but you'll see McCabe is described as a worn out person because of that lack of sleep, because of that workaholic lifestyle. You see, I've mentioned aggression here, but again, you have to understand this is not the shouting aggression. It's just an irritable temper you'll find with McCabe. Do remember another word to understand McCabe is sourness. Why I say so? You have sour discharges, as I shared with you. So there's a sour vomiting, sour reflux. The mouth, the taste is very sour in McCabe. The sour odor of stool is there, sour perspiration is there. So sourness is a criteria. And also you have to understand, in spite of so much acidity in the system, there's so much sourness, they still crave sour things. So they want the citrus food, they want the citrus drinks, in spite of such degree of sourness in the system. And you have that with very few medicines. Remember Hipersalt, remember Calcadia, remember Macab are your top 3 polychrists who have this sour desire in spite of so much acidity and sourness in the system. So sour discharges, sour desire, sour vomiting, even a sour temper you'll find with Macab. Sour temper, why I say so? Become irritable gradually with the passage of time. But as I shared with you, they're the peacemakers. They don't want the quarrel. They don't want the stressful situation in Macab. If you see here, I have mentioned anxiety about the future, the insecure. Insecurity because of the carbonate feature. They have a fear of violence, fear of aggression, because they have themselves witnessed that violence in childhood, witnessed parental violence, parental domination. And they don't want to be flag bearers of that inherited traits. Another very classical description is, as I shared with you, of Macab. This is a life story. They're successful, they're great, and it's good they have that nice temper. But unfortunately, what happens in Macab, they suffer from the physical consequences of it. Acidity, headache, and constipation is the triad which develops Macab. You have to a certain extent Robinia as well. If you know the small remedy like Robinia, acidity and headache, which is developing in Robinia as well. Remember sulfuric acid, where they have sour mouth, sour teeth as well in sulfuric acid. Remember China, which has a lot of sourness as well. But you have to understand this workaholic Epixian nature is in the background for Macab, with the 2 L's, lamb chops and lemonade. Also, another interesting thing for Macab you have to understand. Think of a stressful period. You have a deadline, you have an exam, and you think of person A, she's getting diarrhea. You'll remember medicines like Argentum nitricum, medicines like Gelsemium, medicines like dysentery compound, which have diarrhea from anxiety, apprehension. But think of person B, and that is Macab, where whenever it's a stressful period, whenever it's a deadline period, whenever it's an exam, she starts to get constipated. So whenever it's time for a project submission, she'll tell you, my bowel habits go irregular. I have constipation during that time. And that's very, very classical for Macab. No other remedy in the entire Metromedica has this. If you see in Borica's Metromedica, you'll see in the introduction, constipation after a severe nervous strain. And that is typical of Macab. As I shared with you, no other medicine has this for Macab. So, worn out woman, you understand the worn out is due to the lack of sleep. The worn out exhaustion is due to so much gastric acidity and reflux symptoms, which is important for Macab. Biting nails can be a feature in Macab as well, sometimes due to the stressful environment. Calcaria phosmedorinum has that, Macab has that as well, to a certain extent. Worn out, if you see here, I mentioned cares and worries. So a lot of cares, a lot of worries. How it affects them? They develop constipation as a consequence of that. Little bit of irritability comes in sometimes. The legs become really, really discomforted. If you see, I've mentioned there's a lot of discomfort in the legs. Whole body tired and painful, especially legs. And it's to a certain extent like the cramps you find with magnesium. Broken down, worn out woman at menopause. So it's not just menopausal women who are worn out like a sepia or a Lilium tig, but Macab, any woman of any age group, if you have this life cycle, if you have this life story, Macab is very, very classical. If you have had the chance, I have a case of a Crohn's disease which was absolutely cured with Macab. I have had that in my YouTube channel. You can have a look later on. With Macab. And the appearance, you have to also understand, obese. Carbonates are obese. Macab, you'll find them to be totally, totally obese as well. If you think of the acutes of Macab, as I shared with you, it's more a chronic medicine, but do remember, superb medicine for wisdom tooth pain. It's mentioned that in Borica's Metromedica, wisdom tooth pain, Macab, Cherianthus are your top 2 medicines for pain of wisdom tooth. Do remember, it's a fantastic medicine for children diarrhea, sour smelling diarrhea, green stool, which is very classical for Macab as well. And MACCAB women especially, do remember, they have a few very interesting PQRS during her periods. So she can get sore throat during the periods. So sore throat with a lot of coryza during the time of the periods. MACCAB may have it. Sometimes you'll find MACCAB telling you that I have flow more at night. And you see that also contributes to the insomnia. As it is, I cannot sleep at night. And if it's during my menses, there is more flow at night or on lying down and stops when I'm sitting down. So that you can have with MACCAB as well. My granddad used to tell me, if somebody tells you that I have a cold, I have coryza-like symptoms, especially around my periods, do remember MACCAB and lacaninum are your top 2 medicines to clear that condition. So coryza, allergic rhinitis-like symptoms which comes on during your periods. You understand sometimes the menstrual cycle can be a state of low immunity, and that contributes or that invites the infection from the outside, and that is resulting in cold-like symptoms in case of MACCAB, which is quite important. Nerve prostration, nervousness, as I shared with you, which is quite important for MACCAB. Desires, as I shared with you, they like the sour food, they like citrus drinks, they like meat especially. But also do remember for MACCAB, milk intolerance is very important. Any carbonates, but especially MACCAB, milk intolerance is quite classical. 2 other things also for MACCAB. Any magnesium group of medicines I shared with you, you have cramps. MACPHOS has cramps, MACCAB has cramps. For MACCAB's cramps, especially, it's more on the left side. And you have a Kaylee-like modality in MACCAB, where they're worse from rest, they're better from movement in MACCAB. So that to a certain extent is similar to Kaylee for MACCAB. And as I shared with you earlier on as well, sourness is one of the keynotes. And M. Chaudhary mentions if sourness is not there, it's almost like a contraindication for MACCAB. So whenever you're thinking of prescribing MACCAB, do look for the sourness. And that degree of sourness, they're still inviting sour from outside to make them feel better, which is classical for MACCAB. That's more or less about your MACCAB. A few interesting clinical tips. Do remember for MACCAB. This is very interesting. This is mentioned from Kent, that he had a chance to visit an orphanage, and he found that there were many children who had emaciation with these kind of sour discharges, and MACCAB helped a lot of cases of marasmus, and especially they were as a result of unwanted pregnancies. I'm quoting Kent here, and he mentioned that if they were a result of unwanted pregnancies and they developed marasmus, if you have a chance, you ever get to know this, MACCAB is another fantastic medicine to help you in this condition. So if you think of a comparison, as I shared with you, my major aim was comparative Metromedica. Apexians, both of them. Successful, both of them. Toppers, both of them. MACCAB and Naxomica. Ambitious, competitive, charismatic. MACCAB and Naxomica. In Naxomica, they're arrogant, they're dictatorial, they're bossy, they're quarrelsome, they're fault-finding, they hate contradictions. Whereas in MACCAB, they're open to suggestions, they're friendly, because there's a past history of witnessing violence in MACCAB. And they want peace, they want a stress-free environment, they're the peacemakers, magnesiums. If you think of their sleep, both can't sleep well, both wake up unrefreshed. But Naxomica gains the energy through the day because they have the opportunity to take coffee, tobacco, alcohol. That gives them the stimulation. A. B. They have the cat naps, which also gives them the stimulation. But in case of MACCAB, they're exhausted, they're not getting sleep, and that exhaustion is piling up, which results in the weekend with gastric symptoms. If you think of the desires, Naxomica can love meat as well. MACCAB can love meat. Naxomica loves alcohol. MACCAB loves sour drinks, citrus drinks. But as I shared with you, Naxomica, bitter desire, fatty food desire are important factors of Naxomica. Do remember, bitterness is a criteria for Naxomica. It's a bilious medicine, so you'll find a bitter taste in the mouth, bitter vomiting. But in case of MACCAB, it's more a sourness, more acidity. So you'll find sour vomiting, sour mouth. That's more the criteria in MACCAB. If you think of the gastric symptoms, Naxomica can be constipated. MACCAB can be constipated as well. But in case of Naxomica, you'll always find the ineffectual urging. But in case of McCarb, you remember the triad: acidity, headache, and constipation. If you think of their appearance, both can be thin, both can be emaciated. McCarb will look tired, McCarb will look worn out. But Naxomica, taking my stimulants, taking my pills, I don't look tired. I have a beautiful, nice hat, I have my nice cigar, and I have $1,000 pair of suit, which makes me look attractive. So Naxomica makes themselves attractive. And if you think of the physical symptoms, as I shared with you, Naxomica, magnesia, both are neurological medicines. You can have a lot of spasms in Naxomica, and they're sensitive to the external environment. But in case of McCarb's sensitiveness, it's more tiredness, more painful in the legs, worse from rest, better from movement in case of McCarb. So I hope I gave you a good differentiation between the two remedies, the two of your top polycrests, and I'm sure you use Naxomica, but McCarb is a very underrated and underused medicine, which I'm sure you'll find avenues to use in your practice. And I also like to share with you the smaller remedies which I shared with you, the medicines like Avena sativa, medicines like Robinia. These are smaller remedies which can come in handy cases where these polycrests fail. Thank you very much. Any questions, please?
Dr. Saptarishi sir, thank you so much for this wonderful session. Dr. Yashika, if in case you are here us, just give your confirmation and please start the proceedings further.
Yeah, sure, sir. I think we can start with the question answer session. So I request the audience to please put up your questions if you have any doubts from sir. Sir, we have a question from Dr. Soni Udasi. That can you suggest some books to read for Materia Medica or Organon?
Metromedica, which I have learned
Hello?
or which I have taught, those books which I like to share. Easy ones to start with is Nash's Metromedica. NM Chaudhary's Metromedica is a very easy book and with a lot of good comparative Metromedica. So Nash and NM Chaudhary. If you want to go one step higher, go to Clark's Metromedica. And also Emotional Symptoms with Ulcus is your best choice. So you have to keep it classical, and obviously if you know your bases right, you can always go to higher standard books later on as well.
Hello?
I think Dr. Saptarishi sir, there is an internet connection with Dr. Yashika. So
Any other question?
yeah, there's one more question. So on the behalf of Dr. Yashika, let me ask to you. There is a question by Dr. Shakshi Gupta. She wants to know what is you said that pulsatilla and brania for the suppressed anger. So would you like to?
Sorry, brania and pulsatilla?
There is she wants to know pulsatilla and brania for suppressed anger.
Okay. Yeah, brania has symptoms from suppressed anger. They have that. And it generally results in either a headache or sometimes even in gastric symptoms. Pulsatilla doesn't have that much degree of suppressed anger. Colocynth, on the other hand, as I shared with you, can develop colic, can develop neuralgia as a consequence of suppressed anger. My understanding of Metromedica, these are your top two medicines for ailments from suppressed anger.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question. How to differentiate between Staphysagria, carcinosin, and Thuja?
This is, not related with this topic. So, both Staphysagria, carcinosin are both suppressed anger, and both suffer from effects of suppressed anger. But you have to understand the miasmatic differentiation as well. Staphysagria has more psychotic, so they keep it inside, they can throw things. But in case of carcinosin, although they have psychotic and syphilitic symptoms. So sometimes they can be violent, they can be aggressive, and changeable nature as well in carcinosin. Thuja doesn't have that degree of suppressed anger. Thuja is a psychotic medicine, and Thuja's nature generally is exploitative, deceitful, manipulative. So it's these are three polycrests, so you have to understand quite a lot of features to differentiate.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question. Dr. Litika wants to ask, can you explain MACAB on the basis of periodic table in short? Like
I
how
don't use
they
that
are
method.
in the periodic table.
I don't use that method. My understanding of MACAB is based on classical literature, and that's what I shared with you.
Okay, sir. Sir, they want Dr. Princey wants to know if you can suggest some good books for personality types or comparative materia medica.
As I shared just earlier, somebody asked a question. I shared that Nash and N.M. Chaudhary gives the detailed drug picture, and you can study comparative mathematica. But emotional traits, my best suggestion is Vitulkas. Vitulkas' book on mental essence, he mentions about all the detailed drug picture. I think it's very lucid and easy. Philip Bailey also is good, but it's a little higher standard. But if you're starting off, please read Vitulkas.
Sir, Dr. Maria also wants to ask, is MACAB a hot remedy or a cold remedy?
Good question. MACAB is generally a chili patient. Carbonates mostly are chili. So MACAB, all carbonates, do remember that they take that common criteria of being a chili patient.
Thank you, sir. I request the audience to please put up your questions if you have any. Please put up your questions if you have any queries.
Dr. Yashika, because you lost the connection,
There is
I
nothing.
don't know
Yeah,
whether you are able to read the
there is a
questions.
question. I know. Is not.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Is Nux vomica good for jaundice treatment?
Good question. Yes, I'll say it is a good medicine for jaundice treatment, especially if patients have taken a lot of conventional medication. There's a lot of heaviness in the upper abdomen. They want the clothings loose, and do remember there's a constant ineffectual urging. And as you understand, it's a bilious medicine, so I find a lot of Naxomica in jaundice cases where you have a lot of bitter taste in the mouth, bilious, vomiting as well. And at the same time, they desire bitter. So although there is again a lot of bitterness in the system, they still desire bitter food, and that's a classical feature you'll find with Naxomica in jaundice.
Thank you, sir. I request the audience to please put up your questions if you have. Sir, there is one more question from Dr. Meet. MACAB nose bleeding. Can you please explain?
Sometimes MACAB,
Epistaxis of MACAB.
MACAB sometimes get nosebleed around the time of the periods. Sometimes MACAB can have nosebleed as a consequence of a lot of exhaustion and weakness. So that is one of the features of MACAB. But not MACAB is not that degree of an hemorrhagic medicine, so you won't get that degree of hemorrhage in MACAB. But sometimes around the time of the periods or as a consequence of a lot of exhaustion, you'll find MACAB developing nosebleed as well, and that's very important.
Thank you, sir. Also, they want to know, Dr. Soni wants to know fungus in nails, growing nails. If there is fungus in the nails, can Nux vomica or MACAB be useful?
If you have the good totality, you can definitely go with either of the medicines. It doesn't matter. But to be very honest, both of the medicines, if you read them as polycrest, they don't have a very good affinity for skin. Any polycrest which you are studying, always make sure you understand which is the sphere of action. If you, as I shared with you for Naxomica or MACAB, skin is not a weak area of action. So whenever they get symptoms, there's always an area where the chain breaks. For MACAB or Naxomica, the chain doesn't break with the skin. So obviously, if you have a very good constitutional totality, you can go ahead. But if you're just thinking of particular symptoms, it won't be a very good advice just to prescribe on fungal infections if you have a little bit of symptoms of those medicines. Anything else?
Dr. Yashika, are you there?
बहुत पंगा हो रहा है यार नेट का.
There is an issue. Saptarishi sir, there is one more question. Dr.
Yep.
Shivranjani C wants to know the differentiation between the MAC-CARB and MAG-MUR. If you want to
Very
highlight.
good question. Yes, good question. MAG-CARB and MAG-MUR. MAG-MUR is also a magnesium group of medicine. In case of MAG-MUR's constipation, it's more like a dry constipation. So the stool crumbles at the verge of the anus. So it's a more crumbly constipation. MAG-MUR has got more affinity for the liver than MAG-CARB. MAG-CARB is more like a gastric medicine, whereas MAG-MUR is more like a hepatic medicine. So you have a lot of liver symptoms. There is pain in the right side of abdomen. That's important. MAG-MUR is a medicine where you have a seashore aggravation, which is quite important for MAG-MUR. Periodicity is one of the common criteria of the two magnesiums. In case of MAG-CARB, the periodicity can be every second day, every third day, even every third week in case of MAG-CARB. But in case of MAG-MUR, you also have periodicity to a certain extent as well. I think the headache in MAG-MUR is periodic, which is important for MAG-MUR. But in MAG-CARB, it's more the diarrhea, which is periodic. But in general, MAG-CARB can be periodic development of symptoms. But if you have to differentiate in a few symptoms, remember MAG-CARB is more gastric or GI tract with constipation and sourness. MAG-MUR is more liver with constipation and crumbly nature of the stool with sea bathing aggravation, which is important. And a very good clinical tip for MAG-MUR, which I've had good results with, is they're worse from exercise. So any leucorial discharge, menstrual discharge comes on from exercise in MAG-MUR. But as you understand, in case of MAG-CARB, it is more rest which is causing an aggravation. So whenever they're lying down, whenever they're sitting down, that the menstrual flow is worse. So that's another point of differentiation between MAG-CARB and MAG-MUR.
Thank you, sir. There is one more question. I think we can discuss it about the stools of Nux vomica and stools of MAG-CARB. Can you please explain and differentiate whether it's hard or soft?
Nux vomica's stool, as I shared with you, they can be constipated, they can be loose, they can have alternate constipation and diarrhea. Sometimes in Nux vomica, you can have blood with the stool as a consequence of hemorrhoids. Sometimes they can be dysenteric with a lot of mucus as well. Do remember, in case of Nux vomica and dysentery, there's a lot of cramps in the abdomen, pain in the abdomen before stool. Once the stool is passed, the pain is better. That's one of the single differentiations with mercury. Mercury, the tenesmus, the pain remains even after passage of stool. But in case of Nux vomica, in dysentery especially, in colitis, the pain abdomen or the tenesmus in the rectum is much better after stool. So you can have either varieties of stool, but you have to always have the ineffectual urging for stool, A. B, you have to have a temporary relief after evacuation, and C, there is a sensation as if not finished, irrespective of the character of stool. But in case of MAG-CARB, as I shared with you, the odor is very important. So sour odor is important. Children, you'll always expect a green, frothy nature of the stool. The term in the Metromedica is like frog spawn. So, it's like frothy, like a scummy and mucus in the stool. But as I shared with you, adults, from anxiety, they can have constipation. Again, that the nature of the stool won't differentiate. The odor of the stool will differentiate between the two. Nux vomica doesn't have any odor of the stool, and they are temporarily better after stool. And do remember, the cramps of Nux vomica is always there, differentiating which from mercury.
Thank you so much, sir. I just want to request if you can type in your email ID or email IDs for the audience so that they can put up the queries at your email. If you can provide them your email ID, or if you want, if the audience want to ask any questions from Dr. Saptarishi, you can mail us at webinar@homeopathy360.com. We will connect it to the sir as well as solve your queries, because there are many questions. Plus, you can contact sir also at his email ID. Is already typed in the chat box. So if you have any queries, I just want to request that we have another speaker also, and we need to discuss the queries along with him also. So you can ask the queries in person on emails with Dr. Saptarishi, and we need to begin this session of Dr. Sahani sir with us. So I hope the audience understands. Thank you so much, sir, for such a nice and wonderful session on Nux Vomica and Macabre, covering each and every aspect so beautifully as per the classical Hahnemannian philosophy. So thank you so much, sir, for such a nice presentation. I hope audience had a very great session today. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, sir. On
Thank you.
behalf of the whole team of Homeopathy 360 and DJN Group, I would like to thank you personally.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
So I think now I should thank you, sir. I think I should invite Dr. M.K. Sahni, sir, with us. He's joined us. So I would like to invite sir. He was Dr. M.K. Sahni, sir, will be discussing on the on the unifying the concepts of organon of medicine and repertory for chronic case. So I would like to welcome him and hand over the session to him without wasting any more time. Sir,
Good, good afternoon again. You are able to listen to me? You are able to listen to me, please? Hello?
Sahani sir.
You are able to listen to me?
Yes, Sani sir, your voice is very clear.
Okay, okay. So good afternoon again. It is wonderful listening Dr. Banerjee about the behavioral medica. It is something that I have already studied, read some of the literatures, and I also listened. Today I feel I got a good information from him about some of the Nexvomica and the Magnesia Sar. Friends, whenever I come with the Bija people, I feel like that it is home coming back. And especially when I meet Mr. Manish Jain and Rajesh Kumarji and Yasika Arora, I feel they are my children. It is definitely wonderful time spending with you all. Previously also I had shared some of my information, some of my presentations with you. And today I feel that we should try to understand the meaning of the unifying and what is the necessity for having the unifications. Unifications, most of the students who are studying Mathematica, Organon and the 12 subjects at the BHMS level, sometimes they feel that they have to pass in Mathematica, they have to pass in, and only for the passing, and they develop some of the liking or some favoritism for some subjects, and they say that this is the only thing. And with these things, their mind is diverted and it becomes one-sided, like that of the Hahnemann's approach of the one-sided disease. So, and I want to break these things because we as a homeopath, we are neither a Organon, we are neither a Mathematica, but a unified aspect of the Mathematica, Organon and the Repertory. And all the 12 subjects that we have studied during our BHMS classes, and I only think that we have to use them in such a way that it doesn't feel that they are different from each other. Organon is not separated from Mathematica, Mathematica is not separated from the Repertory, whatever, all the subjects, because we as a medicine man, we have to become a medicine man, and this is very important for our understanding that. That's why I always feel about this word unifying concept. And I tried my best to present before you the unifying concepts involved in the homeopathy. What we talk about the man as a man, when you talk about the man, we don't talk about his mind, we don't talk about his spirit, we don't talk about his body. When we think man, that means that it includes mind, body, and the spirit. This is the basic thing that we must have the homeopathy. Homeopathy is also the Organon, Mathematica, Repertory, Pharmacy, all these subjects are included and they have to be. So this sensation has to be developed and nurtured in our mind. Friends, with these wordings, I'm going to, at present, I'm trying to involve the Organon of medicines, Repertory for the chronic case. because Organon and the Repertory and Materia Medica, unless you use them simultaneously, unless they are at the same time, and unless they are unified together, so that's why it is necessary, and where you feel that I don't need Repertory. When you say that I don't need Repertory, I practice only in the therapeutic way, I practice this way, that way, I say no. We must practice in a homeopathic way. And what our guidelines is only from Dr. Henneman. I'm proud that Dr. Henneman has given you a very comprehensive idea about the medicine. And once you imbibe his spirit of having the philosophy, having the medicines, and having the repertorial totality, it becomes very wonderful to become a homeopath. What I have experienced during my lifetime, and as I have shared it with parents, from friends, and all you youngsters, I always feel that you students are my teachers, because I learn from you. Your curiosity, your desire, it inspires me, gives me inspiration to ask, learn many more things. So still I feel I am young, not old as that of the 68 years old. So friends, let us start with this topic, unifying concepts involved in Organon of medicine and repertory for the chronic. Now, whole of the human race, right from the inception, curiously watched his own existence. His interest arose to the extent of attempting to create himself. What we have now, we are trying to create a man. We have the robots type of the man. It is only the thing that we are very much curious about ourselves. Life which is observed within the limitations of birth and death has been experienced only in the two states, health and the disease. And we as a physicians, we as a practitioners, we as a medical man, we try to differentiate between the chronic disease and the acute disease. But what about the patient? What they feel? As a patient, he is not neither concerned about the acuteness or the chronicity. For him, the only is the problem and it has to be solved. So, unifying the feelings of the patient along with your philosophy and making it possible to have a medicine, this is wonderful things that you can do. Speculations about essential nature of life belongs to the domain of metaphysics. Now again, when we are as a homeopath, what we feel, vital principle, metaphysics, something which is beyond our limit. It is something away, and many a time we don't believe in it. And when it comes to our practice, we think about the medicines to be swallowed, to be taken into the mouth, and to be which may help the patient. So thought at the dynamic level and practice and action at the bottom level. So two contrasting features are there. The thoughts and action, it has to be unified together. My understanding that unless you are going to unify your thoughts and your action together, you cannot develop a confidence and cannot have the clarity in your practice. And as long as confusion persists in your life, it will become difficult to practice any system of the medicine. So confusion should be removed. Your action and your thoughts have to be unified together so that you can get a better understanding about the life itself. So unifying is always a very prominent word for a medical man. Life exists from the invisible to the visible. We have to believe, and Dr. Henneman was very much concerned about the invisibility of the life and visibility of the life. This is the Hennemanian concept. Ninth one, he speaks about the invisible vital principle, and then he talks about the symptoms at the physical body. And unless you have the unified understanding for both of them, you may not be able to practice the medicine. Friends, I'm going to remind you the point number 9, and you are all aware about this. And the word, every word in this aphorism will help you in making and understanding the homeopathy. In the healthy condition of man, who is man, healthy condition, who is the man, the spirit, like vital force, autocratic. It is not dependent on anything. The dynamics that animates the material body. Dynamics. It is the dynamic. It has got the dynamic capacity. Still, it don't take the energy from outside. It is self-driven, autocratic dynamic force. And what is the function? To animate the material body. Animates the material body. Rules with unbounded sway. It has to work. It is working like a very dictator. Your vital principle. It is working like a dictator on your body. Unbounded sway, and retains all the part of the organism in admirable, harmonious, and vital operation. It is dictatorial, yet it is harmony. It is not anarchy. It is democratic. This is the principle that we have to imbibe in our understanding. And once you understand the importance of this vital principle, and you can try to find it out, how it can be applied in your practice will definitely, you'll feel like confident becoming that. And what is the connectivity between the vital principle and the body? It speaks about the mind. Indwelling region gifted mind. What is mind? It is indwelling. Indwelling means it stays at that place where you think, where you want to. So you can take your mind in any place. Any place. You can keep your mind in your feet. You can keep your mind in your body. So it is indwelling region gifted mind, and the function of this mind is to provide a region guidance to the, it is like the Prime Minister guide advisor for our vital principle. And what is the purpose? The purpose is the highest existence of our purpose. So it is the question of unifying spirit, mind, and the body. Right? It is very important to understand this philosophy to become and practice homeopathy. The unifying concepts of the spirit, mind, and the body. And then medical practice requires understanding invisible plane and making them use at the visible plane. So what is that? There's something beyond the visibility, and you have to utilizing those invisible concepts on the practical. Organon is divided into three sections. We are all aware. The theoretical deals with the how and why remedies act. Dr. Banerjee was talking to you about the why the Naxvamika was working. And then the dialectics, meaning the rule and principles, how to follow the guidelines, and then practical, which compares the art of applying the rules in prescribing for the actual patients. So three things are there. There are the principle, there are the guidelines, and then there are the, so objective is there, mission is there. Mission is to how the medicines is going to act, and then to make it possible, we have the regulations, we have the guidelines, and then at the practical level, we have the applications. So this is the beauty of the medicines. Friends, I am taking you your mind towards the stalwarts in homeopathy. Dr. Kent, who speaks about patients generally call attention to the commonest things. They don't come for, and they are not bothered with the causations. They are bothered with their problem. While it is strange and peculiar things that guide to the remedy, they don't care that you are guided by the peculiar, you need the peculiar symptoms, and they will not tell you the peculiar symptoms. You have to observe those peculiar symptoms. The symptoms most covered up from the observation of the physicians are often the things guiding to the remedy. These symptoms that are withheld and seems to be no obscure and no so difficult to obtain are the very one that the patient thinks do not amount for the anything. Patients see what rubbish doctor is asking. Let them say, let them believe, let them carry on their own belief. That you have to build your own belief and don't get diverted by the any of these things. So this style what Dr. Kane has spoken very nicely about. And you may be about the Luke de Cephas. He has made a very good commentary on the organon of medicine. It may be available. It is available with the Bijan peoples. This commentary of the Luke de Cephas. He has given a very strong understanding about a homeopath who has to become a respective, like a homeopathic physician has to be respective like a photographic plate, ready to receive the image of the patient without preoccupations, preconceptions, or prejudice. Sympathetic listening is required, but every homeopath can listen empathetically and establish a good rapport with the patient. You have to be a listener, but you don't have to get attached. You have to be very indifferent, and at the same time, you have to be a caring heart. Both that things has to be unified. Again, the unified aspect is here, and this is the Luke de Cephas remarks on one of the statement of Dr. Henneman. Now, coming to the founder and his understanding about the repertory. For the convenience of treatment, we require merely to jot down after each symptom all the medicines which can produce such a symptoms with tolerable accuracy, expressing them by a few letters, like the ferrum and like this, and bear in mind the circumstances under which they occur. They have a determining influence on our choice and proceed in the same way with all the other symptoms. Noting by what medicines is excited from the list so prepared, we shall be able to perceive the which amount of medicines homeopathically covers the most of the symptoms present, especially the most peculiar and characteristic one, and this is the remedy sought for. This is the remarks in the Materia Medica Pura. In the Materia Medica Pura, he says, you take the symptoms and you see how many remedies are there, and then you keep on jotting down. This is the repertorial process. So he has given you the foundations for the repertory itself in the organon of the, in the Materia Medica Pura. And before that, Fragmenta Diveribus Medicamentorum Positivus, he speaks about we get the information in fragments. And what is the duty of the physicians is to unify all the fragments together so that we can have a very good story. So from words, we have to create a sentence, and from a sentence, we have to create a story. This is the story. And that story is the medicines. Medicines is the story coming, which is storing all the information which has been obtained, which has been you have gathered from the patient in a small piece. Patient is talking it from here and there. You have collected and you have devoted so much hour from the patient, and all those symptoms needs to be unified together so that you can create a small totality of the information, that will provide and that will make you the understanding about the medicine. And repertory is an aid to the Materia Medica to apply the principle of medicines in homeopathy. Definitely, or Dr. Henneman understood symptoms as a fragment from the whole, needs to be unified to construct a disease portrait. In 153 aphorism, Dr. Henneman, he writes, in this search for homeopathic specific remedy, that is to say, in this comparison of the collective symptoms of the natural disease with the list of the symptoms of known medicines, in order to find these an artificial morbific agent by similarity of the disease. And in the footnotes, he gives credit to Dr. Bonigesen. He says, Bonigesen has done a great job by publications of the characteristic symptoms of homeopathic medicines, and his repertory has rendered a great service to the homeopathy, as well as Dr. Jar in his handbook of principle of symptoms. So what say, to fulfill the idea of that is contained in FR number 53, the usefulness of the Barney-Gissel's repertory is there. So he gives the credit that organon can be actualized. The form of the organon can be actualized through the body, through the repertory. Then he also similar between the group of symptoms of the disease and the medicine, and this is the purpose of the use of the repertorial analysis. So friends, I am trying to unify and making you understand that the need for the understanding Organon 153 FRE and then applying the repertory also. Again in 155 fifth edition, I say without any considerable disturbance for the employment of these most appropriate homeopathic remedy, it is only symptoms of the medicine that correspond to the symptoms of disease that are called into play. So repertorial simillimum is like tuned musical simillimum. Music, what is music? It is the tuning of all the instruments. So repertorial symptoms is also like a musical unifications of all symptoms. Friends, modern pathology are accepted in large part of the schools for medicine and serve as the common base for the therapeutic art. There are enough variations and differences, particularly in general pathology, for understanding the chronic disease. But homeopathy differs with the regular medicine in its interpretations and applications of several fundamental principles of science. It is these differences of interpretations and the practice growing out of them which give homeopathy its individuality and continue its existence as a distinct school of the medicine. We don't have to compare. We need not compare with others. We have our own distinct philosophy. We have our distinct system of the medicine, which is complete in itself. We have to be proud about our system. We have to practice devotedly our homeopathic system of the medicine. So, homeopathic medicine, medical science views the fact of the universe in general and medical practice in particular from the vitalistic substantial standpoint, that is from the standpoint of the substantial philosophy. So it is our philosophy, it is vitalistic, it is very uniform, it is very unique, and it is very dynamic. And all these things forces us to include life, mind, and substantial entities having the real objective in existence. So in homeopathic philosophy, life, mind, body are the fundamental verities of the universe. According to Hahnemann's, in file number 77, Nature of the Chronic Disease, it says, the true chronic disease are those which owe their origin to the chronic parasitic miasm or germs, or we should say a chronic parasitic microorganism. He says, they constantly extend and notwithstanding the most carefully regulated mental and bodily habits, they never cease to torment their victims with the constantly renewed suffering to the end of his life, if left to themselves without an aid of a special remedy under the law. These are the sources of great suffering to the human race. The most robust constitution, the best of the habits, and the greatest energy or unaided vital force are unable to the system. This is the power of the mind. Power of the mind. Even the very robust and very strong vital force, it cannot survive. And as long as this miasmatic factor, and this is the domain of the chronic disease. This is the domain of the chronic. Chronicity means dominated by the chronic mild, which needs some support of the homeopathic medicines. So Hahnemann tells chronic disease only are the best test of the genuine healing art because they do not themselves pass away. Now, there are the understanding, I have cured this or that disease, but there are many cures which happens by itself. All acute disease, they have the possibilities of getting cured itself, getting resolved. The artificial chronic disease, they also can subside if you stop taking medicines and improve your lifestyle. But those diseases which are dominated by the miasmatic influence, it is become difficult to resolve without having a proper system involved into them. So all chronic disease originates and are based on fixed chronic mile, which enables their parasitical ramifications to spread through the human organism and to grow without end. And this is written in the chronic disease 1 to 3 paragraph. And then he writes semi-vital morbid mile, chronic disease and semi-vital morbid mile of a parasitical nature, which can only be neutralized and annihilated by a more powerful remedy producing analogs, similar effects. So these are the writings from the chronic disease of the Dr. Hahnemann. So expression of the chronic disease, how it is expressed in these investigations, the ascertainable physical constitutions. It is in the point number 5. Just try to remember this. I am talking only within the domain of the organ and medicine. Ascertainable physical constitutions of the patient, especially when the disease is chronic, his moral and intellectual character, his occupations, mode, living and habits, his social and domestic relationships, his age and sexual functions, etc., are to be taken into consideration. So this is the totality concept. A patient is never indicated by one symptom, two symptoms. It is indicated by the totality of the symptoms. So totality expressions through the group of the symptoms. This is important. And repertorial matching brings you the simillimum medicine. So do you feel now that the homeopathy can be practiced without the true homeopathic, the classical homeopathy can be practiced without repertory? Yes, we need instrument every time. We need support every time. Unless we are aided with the repertorial analysis, we are not able to go into the details of the case. So unifying concept has been expressed by Dr. Hahnemann, which involves organon of medicines and repertory across the chronic disease. And applied clinical approach for therapeutic application is the only through the. So my contention, what I have understood at the end of my life, that you cannot practice homeopathy without the use of the repertory. Repertory is the only thing that can help you to practice with most honest, in an honest way and in the judicious way. Now I am going to display some of the cases so that you to demonstrate the repertorial approach to fulfill the principle of the homeopathy. The chronic disease, what I have spoken just now, I want to tell you and demonstrate with some of the cases that I have understood during my, and I have taken only sample cases to give you the idea about how I work with the medicine. Now this is a case of bulky uterus. And you know why I have taken this case? Because this patient didn't came for the bulky uterus. She came only for the cervical pain, and she was unmarried lady, committed to a ward to the religious. She was a religious lady, and approached our department at the Fuji Holy Family Hospital, Patna, for her pain in the cervical region. She came only for the pain. Doctor, I have the pain, cervical pain. Can you help me? I said, I can. Let me see. She was suffering from this pain for the last 2 years. This pain was more on the left side and was extending downwards to the hand. The pain was more acute with every change of weather, and whenever she became anxious, however, she felt better with the motion of her hand and the neck. The motion was giving her. So this was the presentation. For this problem only she came, because she was not aware that we are going to, we can remove the bulky uterus also. So when I started taking the history, I found other complaints also. She had warts in the neck, around the neck. It was very soft. And then condylomata growth was there in the rectum, and it was present there for the last 3 years. It was painful while passing the stool. And on further questioning, we observed that she was also suffering from metorrhagia, profuse menstruations, which last for the last 10 years. And she got this checked with the doctor. And doctor told them that it is a case of fibroid uterus, which is bulky in nature, and they suggested for the hysterectomy. So she was prepared to, and she had taken an appointment with the doctor for her surgery case. She had resigned to undergo the proposed hysterectomy. However, now we started giving her suggestions that if she followed our treatment, there would be no need to undergo any surgery. She was delighted to accept our treatment in total. So now she left the idea of getting she cancelled the appointment with the doctor, and she said, let us wait for some time and see your way of practicing. Now this is the report of the ultrasonography, which displays the bulky uterus. Now this is another slide for it. This is another display of the same case. This is another display of the same case. This is the same case. And this is the report where it indicates that bulky uterus. Now we started with the case. We went into the past complaints. She had suffered from jaundice at the age of 14, discoloration of elbow joints in the childhood, abscess in axilla at the age of 12 years, which was operated, glandular growth in external throat, operated at the age of 13. And when we inquired about the family, her father was a farmer and he died of the kidney problem. Mother was diabetic. One brother was also diabetic. She had 3 brothers and 3 sisters. Her parental grandmother suffered from the joint pain. 2 of her maternal uncle have heart problems. So now the heart problems and the diabetic, so much background is there of the family, in the family history. And with this, next we went into the patient as a person. I told you she has joined the religious life of her own choice. She didn't, nobody compelled her to become a sister, and only because she wanted to serve the people, she wanted to help the people. This was I questioned again and again, and she said, she submitted me. No, doctor, you believe me that it is my choice. And she was a silent sufferer, and usually suppressed her anger. Her suffering much at the death of her father, and feel unconscious at the news of. So you can understand her sensitivity, and that's why I believed also that she became unconscious at the news of death of her father. She was a sympathetic woman who wept easily. She enjoyed traveling and meeting people. It is very important because of this only, traveling nature and meeting people, community based, she was enjoying the life of being a sister. Her physical presentation, she was tall and well built. Teeth had some cavities, tongue were indented, usually constipated. She liked sleeping on her abdomen. Sleep position was abdomen. She liked cold session. Her suffering from the prolonged menstrual flow. Now, analysis of the case. What I told you, she was a sympathetic and caring lady. Religious affections was dominating in her personality. Serious about her duty, but at the same time indifferent to the surroundings. She got angry easily, but this was not reflected in her action as it was suppressed within. So two phenomena you are getting. You are getting the background of the miasma here. You are getting the miasma and you are getting the presenting problem and the situations that has arisen up. She became indifferent at one stage and she is carrying at the background of the miasma. Let's see. Next. So we had the repertorial rubrics: anger suppressed, color blue desire, sympathetic, traveling desire, indented tongue, and this is the combination of the rubrics. The mental rubrics, the physical rubrics, the scheme presentations, everything was there, and all this was meant for drawing the completeness, mind, body, and the spirit. This was the philosophy for me, to combine all and take the rubrics from all the three planes of the life. Now we repertorize with the radar opus repertory. At that time, the version that was available at that time, and you see the medicines phosphorus, sepia, and carcinosin on the first line. Sepia, sepia, phosphorus, and the carcinosin on the first line. Now, choice of the remedy. Sepia was reflected well in the repertory. I don't feel that she was phosphorus, only because the indifferences nature is not there in the phosphorus. Sepia has got the indifferences quality also. Carcinosin was also at the same level. Sepia didn't cover the thirst and soft words. Carcinosin was not with the blue color, desire, and indented tongue. Then family history. It suggested that carcinosin is the dominating. You may have the repertory in the radar opus and the generality chapter. You can get a rubric there. I have not taken this rubric. Family history of diabetes. Family history of diabetes. There are few medicines along which the carcinosin is there. We feel that carcinosin will pave the path for sepia. Our choice of medicines was carcinosin at this time. So we transmitted the carcinosin 0/1 on 31st January in 2007. The patient was advised to take ultrasonography of the abdomen. It was done on 2nd March 2007 and the report was submitted, that report that I told you, on the 3rd March 2007. She reported on 3rd March about feeling better and the pain in the neck was much reduced. The same medicines was continued, and on 12th March she reported again the complaints of the pain. Now the pain relapsed in the abdomen, indicating that onset of the mens. So now at this moment I feel that we should go back to the sepia, and so we transmitted sepia at this on the same day. And after sepia, she reported for her first mens flow on 16th March 2007. This time, the flow was less and with no feeling of weariness. She kept reporting of no further problem, a more freshness feeling. Some of the words also fell down. We suggested a fresh ultrasonography report. Report was submitted on 19th April 2007, which indicated that the fibroid disappeared, it did not exist anymore. Now I am going to show you this is the report of the uterus, sonography of the uterus, where you don't find any mark of the, it seems to be like a normal uterus photograph. You see that it indicates that it is completely resolved. So now the totality is covered with the indicated remedy. We felt that there is no need to consider the pathological data. This case of sepia was covered miasmatically by the carcinosin. We removed the miasmatic, the chronic disease. Then following the right path, medicine will follow the law of the cure. The selection of the right medicines requires correct prescription, perception of the case and the dominating point. Now, friends, you may ask whether in every cases of the chronic disease we have to go for a miasmatic prescribing, a nosodes or something like that. Friends, here are the controversy. And in some of the cases, I don't find any miasmatic, any backgrounds of the history. And I found that they don't have, I don't prescribe. And on the basis of the totality of the symptoms, I prescribe and only the first choice of the medicine is able to remove the carcin effect of the miasma. So there are the two approaches are there. We can say the two-layered type. One patient with the one layer and with one totality, and other will require the two totality. First totality will remove the miasmatic effect, and second totality will remove the presenting conditions. So this is the understanding that we can get for treating the chronic disease. Now I am going to give you another cases, 15 cases, but I am not going to give you the details of all the 15 cases. Only one illustrated case of the hypothyroidism I am going to share with you, and thereafter I will be giving you many more thyroid cases, and I will show you how I came to the totality, although all the cases were of the hypothyroid. This was the project that we had conducted sometimes back in 2018, where we took 15 hypothyroidism cases for our in our analysis. And this illustrated case, it was taken on 12th January 16. The name is like this. She was a female with 40 years age and her weight was 65. Her present problem, she was diagnosed as a suffering from the hypothyroidism for the last 4 years. Breathing was difficult, which was aggravated by walking, and then palpitations and cough, exertions aggravated by the race, allergic to dust, and obesity. The past history, there was nothing significant. In the family history, father had a dry cough, he was a retired person. Mother was hypertensive, she was a housewife, and brother and sisters, she was only self. She had two brothers and she was alone. She was married in 1996. Husband was a police inspector, and she had one son and one daughter. Now, when we tried to look into the mental setup, she was an educated lady, graduate, but she had not opted for the house job because she got married with a police officer, and she was satisfied with the thing, so she left the idea of getting into the job. Now the life became very sedentary. Lifestyle was sedentary. Concentration, now still the mind is there that she is educated, but she is now leading it. So there is a concentration difficulty started. She became short-tempered, weeping after the anger, mild and silently she was suffering, less interest in religious activity, and she used to remain remain in the bed. This was the desire. Most of the time she would like to keep down. And one thing was very important, that something should happen, life should get changed, she should enjoy something, she can get some better things, that she can fly like a bird. Physical setup, teeth had fallen down, dryness of the throat was there with the cough, become vegetarian after marriage. Now here also the suppression, she was non-vegetarian, but after the marriage she compromised. Nausea, vomiting tendency, eating after, stool was constipated, palpitations aggravated by walking and exertion, respiration difficult, cough. Now this is a divided personality. One personality trying to make a compromise, and other personality trying to come out from the life. And this is the breaking point from where the thyroid and the hormonal system broke down, and the pathology arose for the hypothyroidism. See the report, 12.5 TSH, ESR20, and ovarian cyst was there. Rubrics we selected: mind, weight remain in desire 2. Mind memory weakness for the proper name. Mind change desire. Very beautiful rubrics are there. Nausea, drinking after. Chest palpitations, anxiety, exertion during. Chest palpitations, cough during. Respiration, difficult, cough during. And respirations, palpitations, difficult with the palpitations. And he had a general, in the generality chapter, there is a hypothyroidism like rubrics you are reporting. The choice of the remedy was Pulsatilla. The Pulsatilla 0/1 was taken, was given. Pulsatilla basic theme is the changeability, is the better reflected in this patient. Pulsatilla 0/1 was transmitted through the air on 12th January 2016. Case monitoring was done through the TSH and other physical and mental symptoms. Now see the repertorial totality, the Pulsatilla indicating all the rubrics that I had taken. Second medicine was Netramuroticum, but because of the changeability factor and breaking down of the personality, we selected the Pulsatilla. Now this is the follow-up. 12th January, treatment started with Pulsatilla by 0/1. 16th January, dry cough, persist yet feeling better. Then 1st February, better cough, better, swelling less, continued, no change. Then 2nd February, freshness, swelling better, cough minimum. Now she took the test of the thyroid. It has came down to 5.05. Still we didn't change. Then on 16th June, she reported that now she is not feeling further progress. So a stagnated progress. Now, according to the 50 millismol application of the medicine, I felt that now it is the time to increase the potency. So I went to the Pulsatilla 0/1, the same medicine. Now again she reported on 2nd of the October, TSH is now 2.05. Then 12th of the February next year, it came down to 1.05. The case was followed for 2 years with steady maintenance of the TSH. See how wonderful medicines can work when you select and the single remedy, when you follow the repertorial philosophy, applying the principle of the organon of the medicine. Now I am going to give you, this is the synopsis, this slide shows you the synopsis of the 15 cases. In Pulsatilla was one of them, only one case. We had 4 cases which was treated by the Netramuroticum, and 3 cases which were treated by the Thylacia, and 2 cases which were treated by the tuberculinum, and 2 cases treated by the sulfur, and 1 case treated by Nux vomica, and 2 cases treated by the, and all the these are the medicines from the general homeopathic medicines on, and it was selected on the basis of the constitutional selection. So this was the case. Now I am going to give you another information. Now the 2 different type of the Netramuroticum, the portrait. Netramure, and each medicines you come, they don't come and represent with the same group of the symptoms. They have their own lifestyle. You have to translate the lifestyle into the repertorial rubric so that you can get and arrive at the medicine. So this totality, you see the Netramuroticum with the rubrics of grief, then nose perspirations, and all these slides gives you the Netramuroticum. This case was also the Netramuroticum. This 16 months it was treated and it got cured. And this after the 15th month, this case was cured. Now this is another case of the Netramuroticum, and here also you see the totality. The Netramuroticum is there, and it was cured within 15 months. And then another slide is with the 16 months. Here in every slide you the different totality, the different symptoms are there, but they are coming and indicating the Netramuroticum only. This slide with Netramuroticum only. Every slide it is making you the indicating the Netramuroticum. This is the 4th slide of the Netramuroticum. Then you see the silesia, the two cases of the silesia, the two different totalities, two different types of the symptoms, but the medicines are the silesia. And it is also very important. So this understanding indicates that whatever may be the nomenclature of the disease, it is the totality of the symptoms, totality of the presentation, which is useful for giving you the indications for the medicines. We don't have to think about the medicines. We don't have to think about the. We have to only think about the totality, how it is presented and how it is portrayed. And this is what Dr. Henneman wanted to you. You see the symptoms, they have fragment, and then you try to unify. You will get the remedy. So unification of the symptoms is important. To unify them, you can unify them only through the repertory. There is no other process by which you can unify. It is like tuning. The several in the musical system, what you do, several instruments are being played and they are tuned so that you can get a musical tone. And here also, these are several symptoms are here and they are unified in such a way that they get the tune of the netramuroticum, they get the tune of the silesia, they get the tune of the medicines. So this is the philosophy, and that is being actualized through the report. This is also a silesia case, and this one was treated in the 16 months, and this is the 15 months it was treated, and it is very important understanding that you can have. Now, this is tuberculinum cases, the two different phases of the tuberculosis, the two different phases of the silesia, the different phases of the nux vomica, the different phases of the silesia, the different phases of the netramuroticum. It is the patient, they are coming in the different disguise, but they are carrying the same theme within their life. So presentations and disguise, one can dress themselves in a different way, but at the inner point, they are only one. So expressions outside and the visibility. So through the symptoms, we are observing the dynamic, the invisible things. And what is the invisible? The medicine is invisible. Netramurotic is invisible. And through the symptoms, if you try to look at, you will not be able to arrive at the netramuroticum. You will not be able to arrive at the nux vomica. You will not be able to arrive at the nux. You can think only about on the therapeutic basis, only few medicines. But any medicines from your medica can be the tools for giving you the invisible. So symptoms are invisible. Symptoms are very important for you. This is silesia. This is silesia. This is nux vomica and the silesia. This is tuberculinum I showed you. Now this is sulfur. One important product that I have taken in the sulfur is the fastidious. Fastidious. Have you ever thought about the sulfur to be a very fastidious remedy? But Radaropus tells you that the sulfur is fastidious in one way. Why? Why? Yes, it is there. Only because sulfur has got the presentations of being not to be convinced by any means. Hard to please. Hard to please is the consciousness that is there in the Frederick Soil's message. So they have changed the idea, changed the meaning of the cane into different meaning. So to accommodate large group of the medicines for the fastidious. In fastidious chapter rubrics, you will find so many rubrics, so many medicines. About 60 to 70, I don't remember the exact number, but 60 to 70 remedies are there, which are fastidious nature, and they are representing the invisibility of the sulfur, invisible aspect of the sulfur that is to be observed. So, friend, my content and understanding to tell you is that you have to see the invisible things, you have to see the vital principle, you have to see the invisibility of the that is there, and through the known symptoms. This is the unifying factor between the invisibility and the visibility. This is important message from the Organon and homeopathy. Arsenicum. And then this is the two cases of the arsenic. So, keynotes for the homeopathic prescribing is nothing can be known of a disease except through the symptoms. This is the final verdict, judgment from the organ. Nothing can be known of a disease except through the symptoms. Symptoms are the unfailing guide in selection of the remedy. You don't have to think otherwise. Pathology, whatever it may be, it is the symptoms that is important. It is the patient who is ill, not his parts or his organ. The grand generalization, the grand totality, the patient is composed of symptoms. That you have to keep in mind. Symptoms are the only unfailing guide to the selection of the remedy. And peculiar characteristics, individualizing symptoms as against the common symptoms do denote the similar remedy. Similar remedy, not the same. The remedy can hardly be indicated by a single symptom, however peculiar. Friends, in the repertory, we are trying to look for, at many places, there are single remedies. One remedy rubrics, they are very dangerous. I say they are very dangerous. Don't try to use them until they are covered by the totality other symptoms, until they are supported by the other symptoms, because there are the chances that you may not be able to complete the totality. So with these things, it is very important for you to understand the totality of the symptoms, which comes from the different shades, which comes from in a different way, which is presents you and gives you a very important idea about the life. The invisible, life is invisible, and you enjoy, that is your visibility. So combining the invisible and visibility is the only idea that the chronic disease, chronicity, and the organon of medicine gives to you. So with these friends, I thank you very much. This is my small presentation to tell you about how I practiced in my life, what I have understood in my life, because this is important for me, and to share my experience. If you feel it is okay, it is my presentation. There may not be the evidence very much supported by the modern technology. Yet homeopathy persists. Homeopathy is not supported by the present scientific world, but it has to be accepted. It has to be accepted because it is not only that scientific evidence is important. It is important that how they are natural in nature. So friends, with these words, I thank you all for giving me a very patient hearing. Thank you very much. So I have completed my presentations, Dr. Yasika and Dr. Rajesh.
Dr. M.K. Sani sir, thank you so much. It is a wonderful session, I must say. The audience will definitely be get enlightened by your wisdom. And let me see if
Yeah.
Dr. Yashika is available to
Yeah,
for
Dr.
further
Rajesh,
proceedings.
I'm here. Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm here only listening to
Okay.
sir. So I just want to thank sir for such a wonderful session, and I want to request the audience to please put up your questions if you have any queries from sir, so that we can discuss the queries. There is a question, sir. I think this was from Sharmishta. Anyways, I want to request the audience to please type in your questions, please, for Sani sir. Please type the questions if you have any queries on the concepts of Organon or anything you want to discuss. Sir, there is a question from Dr. Princey. Which repertory you used in these cases?
Friends, nowadays it is very important, very difficult to go with the book repertory. So now and to the youngster also, who are very much fastidious in nature, who are very hurried in nature, impatient in nature, I usually suggest that they should go for the computer repertory. That is the radar opus. And I feel that this radar opus is to be the complete in itself. It has got every feature and it is at your fingertips. Whenever I am seated in my clinic, right from my computer remains open with radar opus open, and I am sitting with the computer with the radar opus. Radar opus is supporting me like a aid to my brain. I feel that my brain has been extended through the radar opus. This is important message for you youngsters. Yes, there are the strategy. Strategy is very important. We must have that to develop our strategy, how to use the repertory. And there should be a platform, a strategical repertory, making the radar opus to be your strategical repertory. I say Kent is the best. I say the Bonnigesons is the best. I say the Boger is the best. The three platforms are there. Three platforms are there. The Kent platform, Kent principles, Kent way, the Bonnigesons way, and the Boger's way. These are the basic foundations, along with so many regional repertories. So many regional repertories are there. But all these three philosophy gives you the different facet of the presentations. When you look for the Bonnigeson's repertory, what happens? You are concentrated only with the general rubrics. General rubrics. You have to select only the general rubrics. And many a time we fail to get the general rubrics. This is the practical difficulty we have. I don't say that we cannot utilize the Bonnigeson's repertory. The Bonnigeson's concept is the best and it is the foundation for the repertory. We cannot ignore the Bonnigeson's idea. But for the purpose of the practical purpose, when we fail to arrive at the general rubric, what to do? Kent says, yes, there are the chances, there are the situations, and you can get the particular rubrics. You have to find out the characteristics particular rubrics. And that characteristic particular rubric can be utilized along with the mental symptoms and along with the and when you don't many a time you are getting the pathological rubrics. So what you have to do? You have to select the pathology. You have to base on the pathology. Patient comes to you and no other, you are unable. I say it is my limitations also. Many a time I feel difficulty in collecting so many symptoms from the patient and all from every area. But I have to start from somewhere else. So I use the pathological rubrics, I use the particular characteristics rubric, and I use the general repertory. And when I have, this is called the strategy. This is called the strategy. And I feel that this is a platform. You need repertory has to be a platform from where you can go travel to any place. Hana? So this understanding you have to generate in your mind and cultivate the idea of using all the repertory. Don't become a favoritism for any system. No favoritism, only the thing that what is presented, because patients are not coming from one area. They can come with the different scenario, different presentations, and what it has been told. Every patient we undertake for our treatment, they are like a new world for us. New world, Nai Dunya. Very important idea. And if you have this, if you take this spirit of entering into the new world, you have to go every time. You have to see how new it is. How new it is. It is important. So friends, try to practice. And nowadays time has come for you, because your generation is gifted with the computer repertory, softwares. In our generations, we practice jotting down the symptoms one by one, taking hours together to arrive at the symptoms. And I am practicing this. When I heard about the repertory, I started practicing with repertory in 1986. I purchased radar system in 1990, and then I started gradually one by one, and nowadays we have. So I am aware, familiar with every stages of the or development of the radar, and it has grown up like anything. It is one of the most matured platform that you can get. You may be feeling that I am making a publicity. Friends, being a teacher, being a teacher, my idea, I have a comparative view for many of the softwares. Each software have their own uniqueness. But the software in which you become more compatible or friendly, that becomes the very best software. So what happened for me, luckily or unluckily, I came only with the radar software. I am teaching other softwares also. I am teaching all the repertory also. But for my convenience, I feel that it is good for me. Yes, next.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Utpal wants to ask that why taking single repertorial symptom is a danger thing. Like it is dangerous to say take a single repertorial symptom. Why?
I give you example. There is a rubrics like banana desire for it, and only one medicine, Theridine, is there. Like you, many of the youngsters, I was also in. I got attracted. I said, let us try. I gave it didn't work. Then I made the mistake. Because when we think about the totality, see why the single medicines rubrics are there in the report. What is the reason for having the single rubric? Because it has not yet been, other symptoms has not yet been added and not yet been proved or not yet been clinically verified. The growth of the remedy in the repertory, you will find the three different categories of the remedy: rare remedy, middle group remedy, and large remedy. What are the meaning of the large remedy? Medicines becoming polycrest. I give you the history of the carcinosin. You know how carcinosin came up? Carcinosin started with the Faubustus small writings. Very few pages were there. I say it may be the 30 to 40 pages, Faubustus carcinosin drug picture. That much information was there. Very few rubrics you will not find single rubrics of the carcinosin in Kent repertory. In other synthetic repertory also you will not find many of. But with the gradual use of the medicines become polycrest. This is the growth, evolution stage of the medicine. So some medicines are in the process of evolutionary development, and that's why they have the single rubrics. And you see how the rubric scenario are getting changed from one medicines to two medicines to three medicines, and now the whole of the radar opus is filled with the carcinosin. I used to joke, repertory has become cancerous now. No, it is not cancerous. It is the idea that we have to spread and evergreen. How many medicine rubrics are there for the sulfur in Allen's encyclopedia? Can you remember? 5,064 1 liter. And how many rubrics you can find in radar opus? 15,000 plus. And similarly, Nux vomica or Bryonia, whatever medicines they have in the book form, you will get that. But it is the compilations. How many medica you can read in your life? 1, 2, 3, 4? No, even not that. And I have also not read, only I have seen some of the pages, but not all the medica. I keep read for one of few books, but most of the information that I get, I collected only from the repertory. So this has enhanced my idea or information. So you can say that it is a platform to increasing or information system. It is like a MIS to you, management information system. So friends, use of single rubrics, only answer is that it is dangerous because a patient is never indicated by a single symptom. And if you are basing on that, there are chances of failures. It may be. It is not a scientific approach. Scientific approach is that it should be, certainty should be there. Dr. Henneman has written a very beautiful article. Are the uncertainties insurmountable in medical practice? Long back in 1700 century. Very good, beautiful articles you try to read. Try to go through all the literatures of the Dr. Henneman. You will understand the beauty of having the wideness of the homeopathic principles. Yes, thank you. Any more?
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is a question again from Dr. Princey that in the second case you used medicine transmission through the hair. Please explain it.
Friends, those who know me, they only know me that I am a man who don't give medicines to the patient. And I prescribe, I have learned, and I am born in this drug transmission system because my father was practicing it. I followed it, and I am following it, and I am convinced 100%, 101% convinced that this system is working. And the only belief is the invisibility of the medicines that I was talking just now. Invisibility of the principle, invisibility of the medicines. What is homeopathic medicines? Invisible medicines. Beyond the molecules. Being honest to myself, I feel how I can swallow the things which is beyond molecules. I can put only the things which has got the molecules. It is just will be giving a psychological impact. But with this beyond medicines, and it is working, that means it has got something. So there should be natural mode for application of homeopathic medicine. You go to the Organon file number 283 and 284, 285, and you will find Dr. himself, Henneman, was very much worried about the right mode for application of homeopathic medicine. He talked about olfactions, he talked about oral, and he talked about the tactual. Recently, you might have heard about one of the doctors from Bombay. He was saying spraying the sepia will remove the medicine. Some people make a laughing stock for him. But I believe that it is possible because Henneman has spoken about the olfaction. Henneman had himself spoken about that. And there are practitioners in India who are using the olfactions mode. So this is possible, and I have dared to be wise. I have tried to keep myself wise and confident in prescribing, and for me, the patient comes only not to take the medicines orally. They come only to get the medicines transmitted through the hair that I do. It will be a long answer if I continue more talking on this subject. I request Yashika ji and Rajesh ji to have a separate session for this subject, which will be explaining many more understandings of it.
Sir, thank you so much for such an innovative concept, sharing your innovative concept. Is there any question which you want to ask? I would request the audience that we still have 10 to 15 minutes, 10 minutes left. So we can discuss some queries which can be discussed in short with sir. Please type in your queries in the chat box if you have any queries which can be discussed in another 5-10 minutes. I want to request everybody that I am just sending you the link to download your certificate if you of today. So I'll just post the link of that Google form wherein you can have your certificate. Also, I want to announce that tomorrow we have a session from two of the great speakers again. I request you to visit the website and be with us tomorrow at 3 p.m. again. We have two great speakers, Dr. Gautam Arora sir tomorrow who will be coming, and we also have Dr. Kamlendra Tyagi sir from Jaipur who will be discussing on their topic on this respective topics. I'll just announce the topics. The Dr. Gautam Arora sir would be discussing on one-sided diseases, and Dr. Kamlendra Tyagi sir would be discussing on journey of exploring art and science of homeopathic case. That is the complete analytical schematic examination he will be discussing. So I think this is again an innovative topic, and you will get to learn a lot. So I request everybody to be with us tomorrow again for the webinar at 3 o'clock. And I've typed in the chat box the link of the Google form for certificate. You can generate your certificate from this Google after filling this Google form, and you can fill the date of today. You'll get the certificate of today's date. So thank you so much, sir. Dr. Princey is asking, can you suggest some good books to study?
Good book, what, Repertory or Organon?
Dr. Princey, please revert which all good books you want to know.
You want. But meanwhile, I will try to tell you, going into the original list, they are the gems. Try to go with the stick with the original, because there you get the original idea, and commentary are something which is some opinions are added. But if you want to have the original idea, try to go to the original books. For the Organon of Medicines, the commentary of Luc de Sepper, which I was referring, it is very wonderful presentations. It is available, and for the Organon of Medicines, Luc de Sepper's commentary. And beside this, B.K. Sarkar's commentary is also very good. I have read in details from them only. I get inspired with the Dr. B.K. Sarkar's commentary in the earliest stage.
Clear with the suggestion of the books. Any other queries you want to know, you want to discuss? I request everybody to please type in the chat box. So both she wants to know, Repertory, Organon, both she wants to know what all good books you can suggest.
Repertory has got its own domain, and Organon on own domain. For the Repertory, to getting the basic of the Repertory, two important books are very useful for the students. What I say, the Red Book of Repertory, about the Dr. R.P. Patel's art of case taking and Repertory. This gives you the basic of the Repertory. Then the comprehensive idea that you can get from Dr. Tiwari's books. It is, I think, Dr. Tiwari's book is published by the Bijan Publications, and this R.P. Patel is by the Baroda. Some publications are there. You can find it out. But these two books are very important. You can create a base for the Repertory. Then for the Organon, definitely I told you the Luc de Sepper's commentary. There is another doctor, Bengali doctors from giving very comprehensive and very summarized form of Organon, SK Day or something. I just forget the name. That book is very also important. I don't feel that it is available or not. You can find it out in the market, but this Organon, Luc de Sepper is rightly available, I feel. And this is the basic things that you can have. Besides, the commentaries are very important. Commentaries from the originals are very important for you.
Sir, please update about Repertory as well. She wants to know Repertory books too.
Repertory book, I told you that Dr. R.P. Patel, Art of Case Taking and Repertorizations. This is one book. Another book is by Dr. S.K. Tiwari. Only one book by S.K. Tiwari is there for the repertory. It is Essential of Repertory. I forget the title, but you by the name you can get it, and it is published by Bijan. So I remember that you can get it at the Bijan. And Dr. R.P. Patel book you can get from Dr. Patel's son. Now that Dr. Patel is no more. He died a few months back. Sorry, last year only. And his sons, they are dealing with this repertory. You can. This is the procedure. And for the technical part, Kent repertory, you make it a base Kent repertory. And instead of buying Kent repertory, if you make an investment of the software, that is better because you can get all types of the repertory and many of the books also. That is there. So you can get these things from the software. So buying one software to give you many books also.
Thank you so much, sir. I think we don't have much of time left. 3-4 minutes are only left. So
Okay.
I want to thank you on behalf of the whole team of Homeopathy 360, Manish Jain, and as well as BJN Group for taking out your precious time always and guiding the audience so wonderfully and taking such a nice session on each and every aspect of covering as per the classical homeopathy. Thank you so much, sir, for guiding us always and being always so available that we are thankful. Obviously, the whole team of BGN is thankful to you always for being with us. I think Dr. Rajesh can also would also want to say something. If Dr. Rajesh, if you want to thank, you can also have a word to sir. Dr. Rajesh, I think he's busy. So thank you so much, sir. On behalf of him as well, I would like personally thank you. Thank you for being with us, and thank you the whole audience who have been so patiently listening to us and gaining the knowledge. We hope to see you tomorrow, and we'll be there at 3 p.m. tomorrow again. Thank you so much, everybody. You can download the certificate through the link. For any queries, you can mail me at webinar@homeopathy360.com. For submission of articles on website or any presentations, you can mail me at yashika@homeopathy360.com. So thank you so much, everybody, for being with us. Thank you, sir, for being with us. Thank you.
Ashika ji, for making this event and carrying on very wonderful work for the service of the homeopathy. I thank Bijan, I thank Dr. Yasika, I thank Dr. Rajesh, and all those who are the radar team and the Bijan team. Thank you.